Easy, this motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me. Trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching, hey, 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 motivation.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Ave's record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down. It's like a loot machine. It's like a loot machine. All around town, people trying to get down.
I have in me the ability to make you a better you. So if you work hard, focus, stay on point, you can do anything. Trust me.
We made this track to tell everybody they can follow their dreams.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Ave's record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
and nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
Over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching, hey, 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 motivation.
Hello and good afternoon, and welcome to a joint project between the BCSN SportsWrap and Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU SportsLab. My name is Brian Fulford, and joining me right now, we have everyone that's a part of those shows. Myself, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, of course. We've got Mike Washington and Charles Bishop, and of course, my show partner, A.D. Drew. And we are coming to you with a live reaction and interview show. We will be talking to all the parties involved in today's historic decision in which the Florida A&M University Board of Trustees approved the Florida A&M University Athletics proposal to move from the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference to the Southwestern Athletic Conference by unanimous vote this afternoon. And so, of course, there's a lot of excitement, a lot of talk back and forth. It's a big day in HBCU athletics, HBCU football, all across the board. And so that's why we wanted to bring our two shows together. So, so first off, we've got all of the fellas in, and we've got a guest already lined up. So Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, we'll start with you, and just we'll go a quick reaction to everybody who's a part of the show, and then we'll get our first guest in. So I'll come to you, Doc, first, and get your quick thoughts and reaction on the news.
Yes, I'll be succinct in this part of it before we really get into it. To be plain and simple, I kind of took off my media hat and really put on my cheerleader hat. I think people may have saw that a little bit yesterday when I had the SWAC polo shirt on and had my FAMU Rattler cap on. So I'm just excited.
All right, Doc, I don't know if are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I was just saying, plenty. I was excited and everything about the move, and that's really my thoughts. I want to pass it around. But to get into it a little bit in regards to just how excited I am, just, you hear a little bit about this. I've written about this literally 20 years ago in regards to what would this look like if the SWAC had the ability to put a proposal together that would have people excited about coming to the SWAC. And obviously things have transpired in such a way. FAMU created the initiative in a lot of ways that allowed them to put the package together. And it was just the right time with everything coming together where the SWAC brand and the FAMU brand decided to literally link up. And I can't wait till the first couple of matchups take place, which really in a lot of ways starts potentially this year with Southern and FAMU. Obviously not a conference matchup, but full-fledged starts up next fall in 2021.
Yeah.
AD, let me come over to you. AD, Drew, let me come over to you and quickly get your thoughts.
Well, yesterday Dr. Cavil pulled out a FAMU hat that I did not know that he even possessed. So I could not, as an alum, I could not let him outdo me today. So I've got the hat and the shirt on, Doc, so I one-upped you. So the only thing I missed are the shorts and the underwear. So maybe next time I'll put everything on. But excited. I had a few people who saw the show yesterday contact me, and they're really excited. And some of these people who contacted me are not FAMU alum. They're alums of other HBCUs, some SWAC schools, some BAC schools, but they're excited for this. It's a great day on the hill. It's a great day on the highest of 7 hills in Leon County. So, fangs up, Rattlers.
All right, well said. Let me jump over to Mike Washington. Mike, let me get your thoughts.
I echo everything that's been said. Tremendous excitement, a big splash. You see I have my Prairie View gear on. I've been on Coach Simmons since he was coach at Prairie View to get me some camouflage gear. So I'm not going to change anything. I'll wear some FAMU gear if you give me that camouflage FAMU gear, but no pressure. So obviously enough, you've been hearing the rhetoric on social media. I'm part of a large, even Southern corporate network, and their trash talking has already started. And this is just, fresh off the press. So on many levels, it's fun. It's fun. It's a jolt of energy. But I can't wait to see not only the first matchup, but the 2021 season. For sure. Lots of excitement.
All right, and then we go to Charles Bishop. Charles, you want to get your thoughts, especially find out what what everything is sounding like from the Jackson State folks.
Tremendous excitement. A lot of excitement in terms of getting that Florida A&M brand back in the conference. Really jolt of energy in the conference, if you will, since there hasn't been expansion since the late 90s. And to see those matchups with Florida A&M coming back into the SWAC. Obviously, Florida A&M and Southern last year was one of the highlight games of the season last year. But those matchups again with Jackson State again. You got Jackson State with the Hail Mary pass from a few seasons back. You had the game of Florida A&M in Florida A&M where Jackson State was able to get the victory. So Jackson State Athletic Department, they've already started sending out the memes and wanted to remind the Rattlers at least of the past couple of contests. So I think that has been a lot of fun to play with. But really just looking forward to Florida A&M coming in the conference. They get those matchups, of course, Grambling, Jackson State, Southern, but those all SIAC matchups as well with Alabama A&M and Alabama State. So it should be really, really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. There are some interesting rivalries. So just from the football perspective, but also some classic matchups. Some of the greatest bands in Black college, just bands in general. We'll hopefully have an opportunity to compete against one another in that fifth quarter and so forth. We want to go to our first guest that we have, and I believe we have Colonel Greg Clark, who is the president of the Florida A&M University National Alumni Association. Colonel Clark, thank you for joining us, and it's a joyous day for many Rattlers, especially the alumni. I want to start and just kind of get your general thoughts on this day, and just from the alumni, what is it that you're hearing as it relates to this move from the MEAC to the SWAC?
Certainly glad to be with you guys today, and it is a good day in the Rattler Nation. This has been a process, and if you give me a second, I'm going to try to walk you through how we got here. So FAMU had been down for a while in our athletics program, quite a bit. Administration and within our athletic teams. So we made a decision, enough was enough, and that we needed to get out of this hole in order to pull the rest of HBCU football and athletics with us. And so we made that decision. So the first thing we did was came out to Prairie View and decided to take their coach away from us. Really, we just had him on loan for just a little while, and Big Mama said, come home, and he had to come home. So, hey, it is what it is. He came on home. And so it started with Coach Simmons. That built the foundation. From there, we had to take a hard look at our athletic administration to make sure that we got a solid guy in there that could come in here and essentially take the next step and bring some outside of the box type ideas to what we do. And so we started looking, and we ended up with Kortne Gosha. We stepped out on a limb with a smart, energetic, up-and-coming athletic director, and we took a chance on him. And I'll tell you, within 6 months, we've completely transformed our athletics department, where they're going to be operating with a balanced budget, and everybody's going to be happy. And so, with that being said, when we hired him, we said, come in with big ideas, and he did. And one of those ideas we talked about was possibly looking at changing conferences. Although we did look at a couple of other ones, we wanted to stay within black college football. And for me being a former student athlete in baseball and playing in the MEAC and being away from school a lot, understood the importance of trying to cut down on some of this travel, but really get into those matchups that people kind of really want to see. There's a reason that when Southern came to town, it was our largest gate outside of homecoming. Those don't happen by chance. And so now you're talking about every single year having these kind of matchups. You're talking about getting a fan base excited. That's kind of where we are. So in December 2019, we started the conversation with the SWAC, take a look at the possibilities, and we've kind of moved it all the way along. And one thing that's unique about FAMU is that our president, the board of trustees, the National Alumni Association, the foundation, we're all in lockstep. And so when you got that kind of cohesiveness, if you will, among your administration, and you pull it in the same direction, it's easy to get to what just happened today. And so that's where we are. And we are certainly looking forward to being into the SWAC. So that's kind of a history of how we got to where we are. And we're looking for bigger things to come. So just the fan base is actually, I'll say this here, fan base is actually excited about it. And of course our bands are happy, and I'm looking for some of those matchups now where, we used to have to go up and down the East Coast, but now we can put our bands on a bus and get to Montgomery, get to Huntsville and Jackson State, and start to put some of those matchups in place. And from an alumni social standpoint of view, I got a larger footprint of alumni to tap on, from Alabama all the way over to Texas. I got 4 alumni chapters in Texas. So it makes sense for us financially, and just for the history of black college football. And the fact that, that the commissioner is a very smart man. He impressed me. It takes a lot to impress me. And I needed to hear the game plan. And when he walked us through it, I'm in. You got my full support. So that's where we are, gentlemen. That's where we are.
AD, you got a question? Go right ahead.
Colonel Clark, you kind of hit on where I was getting ready to go with my question. Obviously, part of the alumni base's mission is fundraising. You just mentioned those 4 chapters that you have in Texas. It's kind of where I wanted to go. What does this mean for the alumni as far as potential giving, potential donations, maybe some new untapped markets? What do you think this move in the SWAC is going to be for the Alumni Association and FAMU in general as far as their giving?
Well, I think it should go up quite a bit. For instance, last year we started a tour with Coach Simmons. We call it the Millennium Tour, right? And we rolled through Texas and came out of there, over a couple of nights with about $50,000 in monies to support a lot of things that Coach Simmons needs. Now you're talking about they know we're coming, and our past chairman of our foundation board actually lives in Houston, so he is turning flips right now. And so it's going to certainly drive up our alumni giving. Got a big chapter in Dallas, and hopefully one day we can play a game over in Dallas, but certainly Houston, Dallas, I got one in San Antonio and Austin. And so it's going to drive those dollars up. And then, of course, coming here to Alabama, where I am in Birmingham, we will be good to go. So the fundraising is going to go up quite a bit. And, we're already working on a project right now in the field house, which we help fund. So people are excited, and this is going to make them even more excited.
Yes, Brother Colonel Clark wanted to ask the follow-up question in line with that, but give us a little more detailed in terms of, you mentioned meeting Dr. Charles McClelland, the current commissioner of the SWAC, and the opportunity to engage him in the thought process of why this made sense. Without necessarily getting into details, I don't know what you're able to put on the table, but at least if you would frame that kind of discussion, what things in particular, with your experience with the National Alumni Association, what was important to your constituents and how you look at this model that obviously could be different, maybe lock in step with athletics or from a presidential standpoint, and then obviously lastly from a trustee standpoint, particularly where your game plan is and what your mission and driving for the National Alumni Association, which I'll be frank with out there, I've heard is one of the strongest across HBCUs, which could be beneficial if there's a collective of these National Alumni Associations get together. So I guess there's a two-part component in regards specifically with you and what you have plans for Florida A&M's National Alumni Association and how this may benefit HBCUs in general, but specifically with the National Alumni Associations across the SWAC.
Yeah. So, hey, great question. I am pro National Alumni Association. When the president of these universities, along with their chancellors and or president, the chairman of the board of trustees, when they have the alumni president at the table on these decision-making pieces, it makes things go much smoother. And that's what's happened here. I've been at the table with the decision on Kortne Gosha. I've been at the table with the decision on the president and of course now getting to the SWAC. One thing that we do, around football games in particular, we have a certain protocol. And the protocol is that the president of FAMU holds the National Alumni Association at great heights. And so that president is afforded a lot of access because of what we bring to the table as constituents. And so that's made our doing business together and working together much more smooth. When we come to town, I'll tell the SWAC presidents this now, alumni presidents, we come to town, the first call you need to make is to my alumni affairs director and say, what do you need? We take care of you when you get there. And conversely, I'll be looking for the same thing when I get on the road and come. We normally, we always gonna have a huge tailgate and probably some kind of party, and we fundraise in every city we go to on that Friday night. That's what we do. But we're gonna have a good time. We're gonna integrate. But it's important that alumni see this and they feel welcome. And we got a great president who's embraced the Alumni Association and depend on us for a lot of things. In meeting the SWAC commissioner, again, he's here in Birmingham. We hadn't met in person. We're going to make that happen. But I was looking for the vision. I'm not, we didn't want to just move just to be moving. What's the game plan? And I know he's looking at FBS. That's important. That if we can do this as a collective, conference, it makes more sense than to try to go out there and do it on your own like we tried to do in the early 2000s. It takes a lot of money to do that stuff. But I think we can build each other up. And so, it's important. I like his 10-year plan. I like the fact that you could host the, SWAC championship possibly on campus. I like the fact that, you can come here to Birmingham and play the semifinals and the finals of basketball. It makes sense because it was tough for our fan base, even in basketball, to get up.
It looks like we lost him there.
Okay. Colonel Clark, we may have had a little technical issue there. I want to remind you, if you're watching us on Facebook or Twitter, you're watching a special presentation the BCSN SportsWrap and Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU SportsLab, and it's a general reaction show. The Florida A&M University Board of Trustees unanimously approved the FAMU Athletics proposal to move into the Southwestern Athletic Conference from the MEAC. We were just talking with Colonel Greg Clark, the president of FAMU National Alumni Association. We had a little technical difficulties. We lost him, but I'm sure he will be calling back. So what we'll do is we'll shift over from the alumni. We will go, and we actually now have with us, and we thank him for being patient. We actually have the head coach of the Florida A&M University Rattlers, the head coach, football coach, Coach Willie Simmons. Coach, we've got you there. Want to make sure Coach is there. Coach Simmons, are you there? Want to make sure you...
I'm here. I had to unmute myself. How you guys doing?
Yeah, all right.
Pretty good.
All right.
How you doing?
Thanks for your time. I know we'll get the questions started. I know, Mike, you got the first question. I'll give it to you.
Yes, Coach Simmons, again, congratulations. I guess with all the excitement, I want to get your reaction. How do you feel? But more importantly, in addition to how you feel, is have you had a chance to text the players and gotten at least an initial read, or read the temperature, tea leaves for how they are feeling and your coaching staff is feeling about this decision, at least on the onset?
Well, obviously, the cat was let out of the bag a little while ago, and so I had that discussion with the players last week. They started to hear the rumblings and all of the rumors, and so we went ahead and addressed it. We told them that we were working towards it, but to keep it under wraps, obviously, until the final ruling came out, which did today. And so, these guys love football. They love to compete. They loved the atmosphere last year when Southern came to town. They loved the atmosphere 2 years ago when Jackson State came to town. They all know about the history of teams such as Grambling and some of those traditional rivalries that we've had in the past, because one of my biggest things when I got here was to help our guys remember our history. And, of course, some of those long-standing rivalries were part of our blueprint. So they're excited about the opportunity. Obviously, a lot of them are excited about the possibility of hosting a championship game here on campus. I think that's an exciting thing. They've all watched the SWAC championship game in the last couple of years, being hosted there at Alcorn State. So there's a general level of excitement here. A lot of my coaches obviously have been a part of the SWAC. During my tenure at Prairie View A&M or Alcorn State, or even a coach like James Spady, who spent 4 years as the head coach at Alabama A&M. So we're all coming back to our roots. I see Mike Bishop over there sweating because he thought he had got away from us. We coming back, baby. We back.
Welcome back, Coach.
Welcome back.
I do want to ask this question, Coach Simmons, in terms of from moving from the MEAC to the SWAC, does it change your recruiting strategy any? Now, obviously, you get to have tentacles back in the state of Texas if you're not already over here, or Louisiana and Mississippi and Alabama as well. But does it kind of change the overall recruiting strategy for Florida A&M?
That's a great question. And if you look at our roster typically it more so fits a SWAC roster than MEAC. Obviously, being in the state of Florida, we don't have to go outside the state very often. But when we have 4 players from Louisiana, my starting middle linebackers from Texas. And so we'll be able to kind of get that blueprint back. I know KJ Black, my co-offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, has been wearing me out about getting back to Texas. My defensive coordinator, obviously, recruited the Houston area. He's chomping at the bits to get back out there. So it will allow us to get back into Texas and some of our own stomping grounds that we had during our 3 years at Prairie View A&M. Obviously, the relationships that we built with the junior colleges there in Mississippi during our time at Alcorn State. And so, again, our roster already kind of resembles more of a SWAC blueprint than MEAC, but it will definitely allow us to stretch those tentacles a little bit more, knowing that we'll start playing games now in Louisiana yearly, Mississippi yearly, and possibly even Texas yearly.
All right, Coach Simmons, how you doing today?
I'm doing well.
All right, great day on the hill. One of the things that came out during the various presentations was the travel. Was one of the big reasons. Obviously, you have more going to the SWAC East. You have more teams within a shorter bus ride of you. Just kind of talk about that, how important it is, not only for you as a football coach, but how that's going to affect some of the other sports, because obviously shorter bus rides means less time out of class for kids. So kind of hit on that for me, please.
Well, just thinking from an educational perspective, you hit it on the head. Obviously, for a lot of our non-revenue sports, that's less travel time. Obviously, when you're flying up the East Coast, which we have for years, it takes a lot of time away from campus. Whereas if we're going to Montgomery, which is less than 3 hours away from Tallahassee, that's a same day bus trip. For a lot of our student athletes, or even after the game, you can come right back, and you don't have to worry about necessarily getting back, say at wee hours of the morning, and expect our student athletes to get up and go to class the next day. Which is baseball, softball, a lot of those sports that play during the middle of the week. That's what we face. We face those kids getting back at late hours and sometimes even into the morning and having to get up and go to class. So from that perspective, it definitely benefits us. And then just financially, when you look at it, we're looking at possibly one flight a year here, and the way the schedule swings, if we keep the divisional format that the SWAC currently has, there's a chance we may not even play a Texas team on a given year. So that means no flights. Whereas here in the MEAC, we were guaranteed at least one flight per year, sometimes two. We're flying twice this year, once to DC to play Howard, and then again to Dover, Delaware to play Delaware State. So obviously flights are a lot more expensive than chartered buses. And so just from a logistical standpoint and from a financial standpoint, the move made perfect sense. And that's what the studies did back in 2013. And then the most recent study conducted by an outside source that VP Gosha did this year, it showed those numbers making dollars and making sense, and obviously it's a great thing for our program.
All right. So I believe we've also got Colonel Clark. Are you back with us as well?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I lost you some kind of way, but yeah, I'm back.
That's all right. Let me jump forward just a second from Coach Simmons, coming back to you, because I also know Charles Bishop had a question for you as well. So I'll throw it over to Charles.
Sure thing. Colonel Clark, I want to ask this question. There's obviously a tremendous amount of excitement with Florida A&M coming to the SWAC, but for the portion of the fan base that still has a few reservations, or I'm getting texts now from people who are curious about, is it a rush decision? Talk about the timing of going to the SWAC now.
So, that came up. The timing, I think, is the best time. Because think about it like this. We're operating on a budget that was just approved that would get us through this football season. With the number of expenses that we'll have staying in the MEAC. Well, if we stayed there, you're still going to have those same expenses next year. Plus, when the report came out in 2014 when we did this, I'm turning my camera. We had this report done before. It came back with the same conclusion that we should move. I think the timing is right. The conference is making the invitation, and we're doing return on investment. We're looking at the long haul, which says that if we make this move, we leave the MEAC, we pay the out penalty, and in the years to come, we're gonna make a lot more money than we would normally make if we were to stay inside of the MEAC. So I know people are thinking about it, but trust you me, once Grambling rolls into Bragg and Jackson State and some of these other teams, trust me, this will all go away. So I think we did what was right for our student athletes first and foremost, and the time is right to get this done. In light of what we have no clue what's going to happen on the other side of COVID. But I'd rather go into next season knowing that I got less expenses to deal with than have those expenses put in place. So, these are teams that people want to see and fans people want to see. And, frankly, like I said, I love the MEAC. These good people inside of the MEAC conference. But, it's time to make a change, and this was the right time to do. And I hope that helps. But it was a lot of questions that came out around it. But I think this was the right time to do it, and let the new AD get in and get his feet wet and start to put in place, those financial mechanisms that's going to make sure that we remain in the black. And we want to be at a point where, we can give our teams a lot of the nice things that they deserve. They lay it on the line every day. They go out and represent this university. And we want to make sure that we take care of them and give them the best that we possibly can.
Sure thing. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
All right, Colonel Clark, you mentioned the 2013 report. Now you actually have the benefit of hindsight looking at that 2013 report, and FAMU did not make the move in 2013. How accurate was that report, and how did that accuracy or inaccuracy affect this decision in 2020?
The conclusion that both reports came out that said that, we would save, the numbers around 40% in travel. I mean, it was almost identical if you look at them. But, when we did this particular report, we also took a look at the Atlantic Sun, too, when the consultant did it for us. So Atlantic Sun versus MEAC versus SWAC. And at the conclusion of the day, it still said the same thing, that if you want to save some money in travel, this is the way to do it. If you want to give our fan base those exciting matchups, then it'll make sense. And then I think here's the bigger thing here. I think this move is going to help everybody in the conference because, when we travel, we probably gonna fill your stadium up. We're coming, so it's a financial benefit for everybody. That now you can start selling in your season ticket packages that make sense, and it helps our ads, out in the future what they're going to be getting. And I think the other thing is if we do this right, we ought to be able to get out of the business of playing these big FBS schools. If we do it right, I think we can get enough within just playing each other to sustain ourselves without having to go out and put our kids in that kind of harm, if you will. So, yeah, they were identical. Main thing was the travel, not to get on airplanes and go up and down that East Coast, and it makes sense for us overall.
All right, thank you, Colonel Clark. If you, Colonel Clark and Coach Simmons, if you two are able to stay with us, we want to take a short break and come back with some more. So hopefully, I know we've got some more questions, some more conversation that I know we'd all like to have, and I know a lot of people that are texting us, and I know they've got questions that they are sending to us. So hopefully, you two can hang with us for a little while longer, and we'll take a short break and come right back. You're watching a reaction show here on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab and the BCSN SportsWrap. We'll be back right after this short message.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Avis' record. 202 and 36, I think. Some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands. And the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people and this classic Bible teaching, hey, 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 motivation.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
All right, welcome back to the BCSN SportsWrap and Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab as we react to the news. Florida A&M University headed from the MEAC to the SWAC. A lot of conversation, a lot of reaction going on in the HBCU landscape. What does this mean for not only the future of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, but the MEAC as well? That will be one of those questions I'm sure that is coming up, and all of the natural rivalries and things of that nature that'll be coming up as a result of this move. And I know joining us right now we have Colonel Greg Clark, the president of the Florida A&M University National Alumni Association, as well as head coach Willie Simmons. Let me start with, we'll go to Coach Simmons to start. Coach, I'll ask a question, and let me just focus for this particular season with the news that this is the last year for FAMU playing in the MEAC. Are there any, as you think about them right now, are there any particular goals or just any heightened games that maybe coaches or players or maybe even yourself are thinking about? A potential last contest against North Carolina A&T, an opportunity in the Celebration Bowl, anything like that? There's a little heightened now that this is the last year playing in the MEAC.
Well, obviously, our goal every year is to be the best team in the conference, which means winning the conference championship and then represent the conference in the Celebration Bowl. So this decision doesn't change that. Obviously, being that A&T is exiting the conference as well, I think everyone is looking forward to that final matchup because the last 2 years, that they've been great games, and we've probably been the two best teams in the conference over the last couple of years. So I think that game will carry a lot of meaning. It was already going to carry meaning anyway, but now I think it carries even more meaning, being that two members that have been long-standing members of the conference are exiting after this season. So that game, and then obviously the Bethune-Cookman game, regardless of what conference we're in, is always going to be the marquee matchup for us of the year. So I don't think that nothing. I don't think anything changes. We always feel like we have a target on our back here at Florida A&M. We feel like we get everyone's best shot every week anyway, and I don't think that's going to change. So we're looking forward to it. That's a part of the pageantry of college football, these rivalries and these big time games that people look forward to. And so I'm hoping that we can start the season, on time, so that we can begin our quest of, like we say in our hashtag, leaving no doubt.
Coach, to kind of follow up on what you were talking about there, one of the questions I'm getting is, what does this mean for the Classic, obviously, with Bethune-Cookman University going forward? What does that look like? Will they continue to be on the schedule?
Well, obviously that's a staple, and we're contracted. We're contracted with Bethune-Cookman for years to come. And so I don't think this move will. I'm pretty positive that this move won't have any bearing on us playing them. I think it's something that people look forward to. I think it's a game that's going to always take place, just like any other cross divisional, cross conference rivalry. You look at Clemson, South Carolina, that I played in. They're both in different conferences. Florida State and Florida are in different conferences. So just because we're in different conferences doesn't mean that we can't have a rivalry. That is our rival. We have some rivalries within the SWAC that people want to see, but when you ask Rattlers who our rival is, it's the Bethune-Cookman Wildcats, and so they'll be a team that's always on our schedule, regardless of what conference either team is affiliated with.
Coach Simmons, I want to follow up with the question in regards to how do you have your young men, as I'm sure in a lot of ways they're probably excited about this new chapter because it is this new type of chapter. How do you get them to focus with everything going around, good, bad, and indifferent? How do you get them to focus on the time now? Because obviously you have a sentence, a year season to finish, if you would, complete as a MEAC member, and certainly would like to close out the season, I imagine, as a championship level team and push for HBCU championship in that bid to the Celebration Bowl. How do you refocus everybody, let everybody be excited, rightfully as they are, but then refocus them and saying, hey, let's get to work and let's make this meaningful as we close out this chapter this year before moving into next year?
Well, I think that with everything that's going on with COVID-19, with the cancellation of spring practices, alterations to summer workouts, and even talks about a modified season, we have enough things on our plate already that we'll have to kind of put to the side and focus in on once we resume the season. So to me, you just add this on top of it. Our message always is about being where our feet are, which means we're going to focus on what's right there in front of us. Even though we talk about the A&T game, we talk about the Bethune-Cookman game, our focus right now is the Orange Blossom Classic against Albany State, and that's always our mindset. We don't look ahead to opponents. We focus on what's in front of us. So right now it's about getting our young men back to campus safely, about keeping them safe, and then about resuming normal activity to prepare ourselves for the season. So we know that those things are out of our control. They'll come when they get here. But until then, we're just going to focus on what's right in front of us.
Coach, this is not a question, and I'll pass it right over to Mike to ask the next question. But we're also on a live feed, so we have some comments. I wanted to kind of put those out there just so people know that we are responding and chiming in on what they say. Chuck Hunt out there, big Gremlin fan out there, he said, I'm looking forward to the reunited matchup between Willie Simmons and Broderick Favre. So you already got that out there. You got Price, Tessalane Price talking about, Bishop, you sweating already about the matchups? I think that was Coach Willie Simmons comment a little earlier. So James Spady was offensive coordinator under Rod Bravo at Grambling. Chunk Hunt says KJ Black, Prairie View great. He's excited about the fact that he gets to come home in some ways and test his opportunity against fellow SWAC schools, obviously back with his alma mater, so people are excited about that, especially with the new move, him moving into a native role. I thought that was pretty fascinating with people looking at talking about some of those comments. So just wanted to share that. So for our viewers out there, keep them coming. There are some questions in terms of conference realignment, but I believe we might have an opportunity to bring the SWAC commissioner on as he's finished up. So I'll save those for him to watch in particular, unless you all may have some information on
it. Mike, the floor is yours. You had a question.
Yes, my question is to Colonel Clark. You mentioned kind of branding earlier, and you mentioned some of the band, but in that report there were a lot of items mentioning. So branding value for ESPN, TV, apparel. There were a lot of issues around marketing and branding. And can you take us through a few more, maybe one level deeper into how this move will help in those aspects? We've talked about the travel costs. We've talked about other things, but from a pure branding standpoint, how can you give us some specifics as to what you would expect that FAMU to benefit with this move on?
Okay, so good question. Two things. First, thing that jump out is the apparel deal. We need to be in a position to negotiate our own apparel deal. We spend a ton of money with apparel distributors, but our current deal has us up under the umbrella of the MEAC conference and their apparel deal. So that's the first big one that should pump a bunch of money back into our coffers by being able to go out and negotiate it. The second thing I think is, let's just be clear about it. If people think about black college football, they think about SWAC, period. Now, I know, we've done a great job in the MEAC, as you can see with the Celebration Bowl and some of the other things that's going on. But when you think about the history of black college football, I mean, the SWAC is the foundation, period. So for us, I think it was important. And what I'm going to be curious to see here, too, is I hope we can help each other through this process. I know I'm going to switch a second to the academic side of the house. I'm hoping that, our entrance into the SWAC will help to elevate the academics within the rest of the schools, because for those that don't know, I mean, we have to compete against Florida State and all the other schools as far as academic performance. The Board of Governors doesn't give us a break just because we're a HBCU. So we had to truly elevate our academics, and certainly we're rolling right now. And I'm hoping that that some of the other 8 SWAC schools can start to elevate some of their degree programs, especially at the doctoral level and research level, where we can start doing some collaboration among these schools, within the conference. So, I think just the branding all together, I think you think about SWAC, you think about football. It comes down to academics. FAMU is dang good at what we do. And I think we're going to be just fine. And before I got cut off, I'm going to switch real quick. I was talking to the commissioner about how do we integrate the alumni truly into the SWAC model. And I'm talking about on an organized basis. We can all come to a game and throw a tailgate and do all those things. But do the alumni come and leave a check? or do we, pay Delta and everybody else to get there and have a good time and we leave? And I think we got to change our narrative and our mindset on we coming to have a good time, but we got to leave the president some money. And if you don't do it, it'd probably be better just stay home and watch it online and send the check, down to the university. Because at the end of the day, we've got to make sure that these institutions are in place for those babies yet unborn to have that same opportunity that we had going to these great institutions of higher and learning. But again, SWAC's got a brand. It got a brand. I think we can enhance that brand. And I'm curious to see, once Coach Simmons turn them loose in the trenches, to see how that matchup goes. But I'm alumni, and I was talking to Alabama State today, their AVP, about possibly once this COVID thing is over with, even bringing some of the alumni presidents into one area, and we talk about how we can help each other. I'm gonna be asking the SWAC commissioner to host the alumni presidents and leadership at the Celebration Bowl. We need to talk. This can't be done by just with state dollars. You've got to get some outside dollars, and I think there's can be some collaboration with the alumni associations, with the foundations. We got a great foundation board with a big endowment. Let's kind of talk about some of these best practices and how we help each other move the pendulum. So, but
amen,
I think we'll help each other through this process.
Amen, Colonel Clark. You hit the nail on the head.
Yep.
I do have one follow-up. I'm sorry, I do this to Dr. Cavil all the time. I got 2 texts from a former Southern band drum major and a Prairie View drum major, and they asked, how do you think the 100s drum line would fail now that they're in a real conference? So, little snack talk.
Good Lord says, you should respect your mothers and your fathers, that your days may be longer.
That's it.
Your daddy is in Tallahassee, Florida. Now, bitch, put on notice.
That's it.
I'm gonna leave I'm gonna leave that to Kofi to talk a little bit more about that band, but that band it'll handle business. I have no worry. I have no worry at all about them taking care of business, and it's more than about on loud. It's that thing called musicianship. Perfection, attention to detail.
Why don't we let the former band member answer that question?
That's my answer.
Before we get too far from this, folks, I want to jump in. I know we just had AD Gosha come in. I'm going to let Brian introduce him. But, Greg, I actually wanted to mention something to you, what you just said. You know that's something I've been talking to you about. So you don't have to work that Alumni Association President's conference and meeting. You don't have to worry about that. Me and you will get together. We'll get together with some of these other folks in the SWAC. We will plan that as the Black College Sports Network for you, and we will make that happen not only at the MEAC SWAC Challenge, but also at the Celebration Bowl to follow up for the year. We got you on that one, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'm in
and
full
he comes
support
to our
of that.
convention every year.
I'll be on that as well.
Yeah, we do a big national alumni convention every single year. We do it right, and we raise a ton of money every May or June. So, you know, I'm hoping that I can part some of that into some of the other SWAC schools as a way to raise money. But we got to get in lockstep. The coach shouldn't want for anything. The AD shouldn't want for anything. We got to do it. We got to do it. So.
All right. Again, if you're just joining us here on Facebook, whether you're joining us on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab or on the BCSN Black College Sports Network or the BCSN SportsWrap page, this is a live reaction show to Florida A&M approval, actually the unanimous decision by the Board of Trustees to accept the proposal by the athletic department to move from the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference to the SWAC. And joining us right now, as we've been fortunate enough to have Colonel Greg Clark of the National Alumni Association, Coach Willie Simmons, the head coach of the football program. It's a pleasure to now have one with us, the athletic director, VP Kortne Gosha, joining us right now. VP Gosha, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. I apologize for being tardy here. It's a special day for FAMU athletics, and obviously getting pulled in a bunch of different directions. But good things are happening on the Hill, and we're fired up.
Yes, sir. It's been a busy 48 hours for you, and I think unanimous among everyone here. We were definitely impressed with everything we saw in your presentation to the board. Maybe if we can start, I know we'll have a lot of questions from all of our contributors here, but maybe if you would start with this process. I think one of the things that was most interesting was the timeline of this happening. As you stated in the presentation, you came on board as a new athletic director in right about the time of the Florida Classic in late November, and this study that happened was about a 5-month study. So we know we can do the math and see it's a very short time. So maybe if you give us a little background on you coming into the role as the athletic director and then putting this plan in process.
Yeah, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version, but we accepted this position, or I was introduced into this position November 25th, 2019, and on that date, I made my president, my board of trustees, and my donors a commitment that we were going to put FAMU athletics in the best position that it could be to be successful. To be honest with you, you wish you had 4 or 5 years to kind of go through processes and those type things. We didn't have that long. We really had to move strategically to get us put in a position to really operate at our highest potential. So from day one, conference realignment was one of those things that we really had to look at. We've had some opportunities to really look at our finances, understanding where our money's going, understanding how our money's coming in. And this is no slight to the MEAC. The MEAC as a conference has blazed a trail for a lot of historically black colleges and universities. It's afforded them opportunities to play Division I intercollegiate athletics. And so this is no slight on the job that Commissioner Thomas has done. He has been phenomenal through this process. We've been transparent with one another, and we appreciate his support. But ultimately, this decision came down to what was in the best interest of FAMU. And you're seeing it at the Power 5 level, at the mid-major level. Geography matters now, and especially when you're operating on the margin. We've got to look for cost savings and opportunities for growth. Now, the SWAC offered both of those things for us. The ability to reduce expenses, but then to expand our brand. Last year was a little bit of an experiment. Seeing Southern come into Bragg Memorial Stadium, and we were able to, really take our gate receipts up significantly. Imagine doing that 2 or 3 times a year with great bands, such as the Sonic Boom and the Jukebox coming to Tallahassee. And I think that we can offer that same return to other, peer institutions. It's just a reality. It's hard to put a band on a plane and send them to Norfolk or to send them to Baltimore. It's just cost prohibitive at this level. And so, I think it's about access and opportunities, and I think this move to the SWAC gives us that. And the timing's not ideal. We're in the middle of a global pandemic, but, we really evaluated that, and we just, again, for the future of FAMU athletics, the timing couldn't have been better than now.
AD Gosha, I wanted to follow up on what you mentioned about timing. One of the questions I'm getting is in regards to the length of time that you've been in Florida A&M, concern in terms of, do you feel as though you've had an opportunity to get the lay of the land of the Florida A&M culture, the Florida A&M community, and this is the best move going forward?
Absolutely. And people, and I'll say this, one of the things that I think has really benefited me in my athletics administration career is the ability to come in, assess situations, and not pontificate on them, but to actually move, get it done. And I think that's the reason that my career has had successes. When you have data anecdotally and supporting documentation and trends that echo that, there's no need to really sit and wait on some of these decisions to be made. And so my president brought me to Florida A&M for a reason. And, we provided rationale externally and internally. This was not done in a vacuum. We presented it to my leadership. We all aligned, and we made a decision. And it didn't take us 2 or 3 years to figure it out. And I think that's one of the challenges. And I'll say, from my professional experiences coming from some PWIs into the HBCU arena, I think that's one of the big challenges. And sometimes we're kind of late to the party. Instead of saying, okay, well, wait a minute, we're missing these opportunities. Let's get it done. And so that's one of the things that we're excited about. I explained it, and I think this is one of the things that really got my board over the hump. Is I said, hey, we've kind of got some analog processes in a digital world, and FAMU's 4K potential. And so that's one of the things that we're really excited about, and we've done that holistically in everything that we've done in my 6 months of being here. With our fundraising, we've partnered with Cash App. We've got different ways of giving We've raised actual cash in a short period of time. We've brought high-level administrators to the table who are subject matter experts. And I think anybody can tell you who's associated or who's followed FAMU that there's been a drastic change in 6 months. And and we brag different, but I'm gonna tell you, we've got a hell of a coach, and I'm putting everybody in Black college athletics on notice that FAMU's coming. All right, there we go.
Well said. Let me ask about. I wanted to ask regarding the study. Just a couple of questions. I found it interesting that Dr. Robinson was on campus as the interim, if I'm not mistaken, at the time the previous study was done. How much of a resource was that to you in this study, or how much involvement did Dr. Robinson have in maybe introducing or sort of referencing back to you that previous study? And then I'll ask another question shortly.
Well, frankly, I did not even know there was a study commissioned prior to my arrival. As I reached out to the consulting firm, that's when it came up. Well, oh, there's actually a study that's already been done, and so what we did is we kind of really took that older study and we studied. We evaluated. We said, okay, what's changed from 2014 to now? Obviously the institution, we FAMU have changed. So what has changed? What's the landscape of intercollegiate athletics? And then we assessed that, and then we asked some new questions. We asked, we really looked at that to the consistency of both leagues. Like, hey, what are some things out there? To be frank, in that study, we studied other leagues. We studied some predominantly white institutions leagues and a couple of other things that have been talked about that are out there, and so this wasn't done in a vacuum. I think the timing is right. After meeting with a couple of other commissioners, we felt that the potential with FAMU and the SWAC, after meeting with Commissioner McClelland, will be second to none. And he really sealed the deal. He's innovative. I think he's going to, like Dr. Thomas, I think he's going to be transformational about college athletics. And so to have a similar mind who's very progressive. There's some progressive athletic directors in Black college athletics. I'll talk a little bit about Ashton at Jackson State and Jennifer at Alabama State, two very good friends of mine, who we've had opportunities to really talk about experiences and how we take our programs to the next level. In the MEAC, Dr. Ed Scott and Ingrid McCree. Again, a lot of very innovative athletic directors who are trying to really lift up Black college athletics and take it to places it hadn't been.
You mentioned, and it was also mentioned in the study, other conferences that were looked at. Although it wasn't named, as I heard the presentation or even saw in the study. I don't know if you care to share who, maybe any other conferences. I know a lot of people were saying, well, what about this conference? Or, I think maybe was there any reference towards other conferences like the Atlantic Sun, the Southern Conference, the Big South? Any of those conferences, were they comparable or used as the third conference in the study?
Yeah, absolutely. I won't name the specific one, but I think you hit it on the head, with some of the ones you listed. And for us, again, the geography became a big piece because travel expenditure. But then also, revenue shares and, what we would look like in that conference. Can we still make non-conference schedules work? We're committed to the Florida Classic. We're still going to play Bethune on an annual basis in the Florida Classic. That's not going to change. And so, we had to make sure that there were some things that were checked off the box. And we wanted we wanted to land in a conference that was going to give us a sense of stability, but also an opportunity to be successful. some people have the whole playoff argument, but I'll be honest with you. Last year, the NCAA lost $1.4 million in the playoffs, on the NCAA playoffs. The business model for institutions who really, can't accept state support, it's tough, and so that really wasn't a model that really interested us at this time. We've got some things that we've got to fix, and we've got to provide opportunities for our student athletes. And so, we had to be practical. We had to be practical in that approach.
Yes, this is a question for both VP Athletics, Kortne Gosha, and head football coach, Willie Simmons, in regards to, I know this is moving and then it really moved fast. Has there been any discussion in terms of conference alignment and scheduling, and whether it has or not, is there some framework of how you would like to see it? I know generally speaking at a conference level, the coaches have some ability to put input in how they would like to see a schedule, and then it rolls up to the athletic directors to review it and make some recommendations on what they see. It goes commissioner and on to the presidents to make a final ratifying type of decision. Has that been looked at? And if it has, what are your thoughts? If it hasn't, what would you like to see?
Yeah, I think there has been a lot of conversation. I haven't really dived into the details with Commissioner McClelland, just yet. But typically, it will involve the ADs to come back and figure out, the visions or kind of how that alignment and schedule is going to work. It's a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle because right now you've got 11 members. This thing is going to move a little bit quicker, and so it's a lot of moving parts right now that I couldn't really speak on. We're going to have to figure it out and make it work, but we're committed to doing so. And so it's hard to say this early, but I think over the next couple of months you'll probably see that be better defined.
No problem. I look forward to that. I would like to say this for both you, Coach Simmons, as well as you, VP of Athletics, Kortne Gosha. We had the pleasure of having you all on essentially back-to-back weeks. And I know in these days it's really hard to keep things where it needs to be worked out first. And I just want to commend you all in a very friendly manner that I thought y'all did a good job of coming on the show and not, letting anything out, sticking to the subject matter of why we asked you to come on. So thank you for that. I continue kudos, and we hope to continue to work with y'all, especially now that you come into our geographic footprint in terms of the SWAC, as we cover it all, but we do a lot of focus on that. So
absolutely,
thank you for doing that.
No doubt, we appreciate it.
Mike, I believe you have the question next, right?
Yeah, that's correct. This question is for VP of Athletics, AD Kortne Gosha. Now that the cat's out the bag, the decision has been made. There's obviously 3 or 4 critical strategic steps that, are in front of you. I mean, this is where the nuts and the bolts start in terms of transition. Obviously, you have the 2020 season if COVID-19 will allow us to do some version of that. But what do you see as the most significant next 3 or 4 critical steps strategically to get integrated into the SWAC?
Well, I think the first thing, is to make sure that we're cognizant of our MEAC peers. I think that's the first thing. This move, is bittersweet. We've got a lot of rich traditions, and then quite frankly, there are a lot of HBCUs that this move could affect. And so that's never our intent, and so that's what makes this bittersweet. So I would say the first thing is to make sure that, we exit with class, that we help our MEAC peers as best as we can. We're all trying to survive. We're all trying to take it to the next level. And so we're very cognizant of that. The second thing would be just to make sure that, I'd say that we're ready, that we've stepped our game up. Because I'll say this, I do feel like from a fan base perspective, just from a regional perspective, we're going to get hit every week with some things that we have not experienced. It's great to have a game like Southern once a year, and then things are kind of back to the norm. No, you got to bring it. You got to bring it every week because You've got some fan bases. You're going to go into some hostile environments. And so I think the way that we motivate our kids is going to be a little bit different, And so that's going to be an adjustment piece that'll take some time, but we're confident. I mean, again, I mentioned Coach Willie Simmons, his time at Prairie View and at Alcorn. So he knows the landscape. And then I think third, as an athletic director, we're finding opportunities to really work with a core group of elite professionals and SWAC ADs, and how we can still partner with MEAC, ADs and other HBCUs to create perennial opportunities. That's what it's all about. And so I see those kind of being the three big challenges, and how we really address those going in.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Brian, we are lost your audio. You need to repeat everything you just said.
Okay. Well, I make sure I got. Let's see. Are we back now? Am I here?
You're good. We hear you.
Okay. So as I was saying, for VP Gosha as well as Colonel Clark, I noticed VP Gosha, in your presentation, you had a budget for this upcoming year as well as a COVID-19 budget. And it had me thinking about plans for classics this upcoming year. And I don't know if any information you can share at this time, or maybe a date. But as we start thinking about the upcoming season, football season, and we think about the Orange Blossom Classic, and then later eventually the Florida Classic, worst case scenario, do we know, or when will we know whether those games will be played in the stadiums that they are scheduled to be played in? And if not, what kind of alternative plans might be in the works?
Yeah, I think this year for intercollegiate athletics, and particularly football, it's going to come with a lot of ebbs and flows. All indications are looking like, hey, we're going to kick off, and we're going to start football. But quite frankly, there's no AD in the country who knows what it's really going to look like. How many fans we'll truly be able to have in the stands. We will be able to complete a season, etc. I think I saw a couple of reports today where some schools have started to bring student athletes back, and a number of them have tested positive for COVID-19. Okay, so here we go. I think we're in that first phase of really understanding, but all the indications that I've received nationally says that we're going to kick off on time. And I think that's going to, if there is a wave or something that's in jeopardy of, affecting the game, I think it's going to be closer to, the cold and flu season, which is, November, December. So who knows? That COVID-19 projection for us was almost like a doomsday look, to say, all right, institution, this is what it could look like. Now, my job as athletic director is figure out how do you close the gap, because there's no magic bullet. There's no way to necessarily fix that, but it can show you really quickly, the effects of COVID-19, and for a lot of us in the intercollegiate athletic space, it can be detrimental. So there's going to be a lot of moving parts, but we're preparing to start the season in Miami and to end in Atlanta.
Yeah. So from alumni, a little bit different look. Of course, we got to have a team there for us to do what we need to do. Actually, we should be in Tallahassee right now for our 2020 National Alumni Convention. As we speak, we should have been in a Board of Trustees meeting physically today to see all of this, but of course, COVID happened. And so one of the things that we had to do is actually shift our national convention out to the week of the Florida Classic. We have no clue if it's going to go off or not, but we're still planning to support the team in any way we possibly can, and trying to move forward. I have to be cognizant of my alumni and especially my season rattlers, and ensuring that if they're going to come, we've got to put our heads together and make sure that they're safe. So rather right now, we're working toward being there for that first football game, and we'll just kind of see how it goes. But safety is priority, or for us, because we do travel in big numbers. And one of the things that that's come out recently is the worry, because we booked our hotel in Southern and we got several of them sold out. Ready to in New Orleans ready to trek over to Baton Rouge for that game. And so we got to kind of take a hard look and see how does that look, So it is an issue, but at the forefront, we're going to always make decisions what's in the best interest of the safety of our alumni.
I had another question for AD Gosha, and I wanted to ask. Obviously, the focus and excitement right now is on football, but what does it mean for the other athletic programs in Florida A&M, the basketball, the baseball, the various other spring sports? And what does this expansion of the brand mean for those other sports as well?
Well, again, I think it's going to be a big positive for us. When you think about, and again, our baseball program, 2019 NET champions, our baseball brand is strong, and now putting them in a very strong baseball league with, a lot of perennial brands like Jackson State and Alabama State. We're playing a lot of those institutions anyway. And so for us, again, I think it gives us an opportunity to do some things that we haven't. You think about some of the other sports, and basketball in particular. We've kind of turned the corner with our men's basketball program, and just hired a new women's basketball coach. And so it will be really good for us now to really have our fan bases be able to kind of follow and support our basketball brands locally. Hey, you can get in a car and go to Montgomery and see a great matchup on a Saturday. All of those types of elements. Our alumni base, think about the alumni that we have in the Houston and Dallas area, so now you've really changed, you've tapped into another set of really opportunity for us. And so we're excited about that. And so I think across the board, all of our programs feel really strong about this because what it's going to bring to the table.
Okay, we're going to go to joining us right now, Kofi Hemingway, one of our BCSN contributors. Kofi, we'll go over to you. I know you had a question for probably VP Gosha.
Off mute. You get off mute. Yeah, real quick. I noticed that really with a lot of the other events around the world, many of them had been canceled. I know that with Wimbledon, they managed to ensure their event so that everything basically could go off. Is that a part of our vernacular? Is that a part of our structure at this time? And
yes. Yeah, so we're working on all of those things. To your point, for a lot of institutions, or I would say events like Wimbledon, they're so significant that they had either event insurance or emergency insurance to cover those things. Once the pandemic hit, everybody started to look into those things, and so they're not necessarily as feasible as you would imagine. But we are looking into those type of things, in anticipation for an extended period of time. But again, as we mentioned earlier, from the state level, and just kind of national conversation it looks like there's going to be a posture where things are going to open up enough to participate. And I've even talked to some schools here in Florida who are considering up to 50-60% of stadium occupancy. And so this thing, there's a lot of moving parts between now and the beginning of September. Today, June 15th is drastically different than May 15th. And July 15th is going to be very drastically different than June 15th. And so, we just got to keep planning and moving forward as this thing progresses.
Kortne Gosha, brother Gosha, I wanted to follow up with a question, big picture type of dynamic. So this may be a little early in the framework, so I understand if that's the case. But one of the big frameworks for the MEAC SWAC Challenge was obviously the early game with the MEAC SWAC Challenge, but even bigger was the Celebration Bowl. Has there been any indication on how that is going to move forward? I know a lot of people are having questions about that and concerns. It seems to me at this point, the MEAC is still a viable conference in regards to what's going on there. So I would think that it continues to move forward until something else happens, but I know contractual things are taking place. What can you tell us in terms of what you are aware of in regards to the Celebration Bowl? With the
yeah. So very good question. That was actually a point of conversation with both commissioners. Both of them feel very strong about where we are with the Celebration Bowl and those agreements. So we feel confident, and I've seen some of the speculation about, the MEAC, again, the MEAC is going to be just fine. There are a lot of institutions in the MEAC that will continue to keep it vibrant. And again, I don't think they're going to disappear off the face of the planet because Florida A&M. The MEAC, is created by several other great institutions. And so I want to kind of put that misnomer to bed, but I certainly think that the Celebration Bowl will be different. And quite frankly, we're looking forward to winning it in the MEAC and the SWAC.
I like it like that. Back to back, I guess you
Back
would
to
say
back.
that, as they say in a lot of partners. And I thank you for being so upfront with that answer, because that was out there. And I wanted to put it on the table because I was hearing what you just said, but I think it comes stronger if it comes from you and the other individuals that are directly representing the two conferences. So thanks for that.
Mm-hmm.
And the beautiful thing about technology, and while we're doing our show, we've got a little bit of breaking news, and I'm going to throw it over to Colonel Clark. Colonel Clark, you want to share a little bit of that breaking news that you just shared with us on the back end?
Happy to. Just got a message from our chairman of the Board of Trustees, Mr. Kevin Lawson, that the SWAC presidents voted unanimously 10-0 to invite us into the SWAC. So that hurdle is out of the way. So we're on our way now. Good job.
Congratulations.
Y'all.
Congratulations, VP Gosha, Colonel Clark, Coach Simmons. I'm sorry, I talked right over you, Doc. Say that again.
No, I was saying that was congratulations. That moved fast. It was great news. I had heard earlier that the ADs acted, and it was also unanimous that the SWAC ADs supported the move, and it went, I guess, directly to the presidents to support that. So it's amazing how everybody is with synergy in regards to the unanimous decisions that this is going across the board at various high executive levels. So to see everybody on this same page, which we've heard from Kortne Gosha, from Willie Simmons, Colonel Clark, the board earlier, it is amazing. I'm not sure if we've ever seen this type of synergy before. So if you're talking about a way to start a new chapter of the 100 years of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, I think this is a very appropriate. So just kind of wanted to put that on the table. Yep.
I want to follow up with what you said, Doc, with the synergy and the timing. VP Gosha, maybe if you think about how quickly everything has moved, what are your thoughts? And when you hear and you see how everything has moved and all the synergy and almost all the planets have aligned themselves, it's a tremendous accomplishment of what you and the staff and everyone have been able to do. Share your emotions and your thoughts right now as you're hearing this news.
Well, I'll say this, and I talked about it a little earlier, the commitment that I made to this university by serving as its athletics director. Again, I think we're sending a message that we're not playing around. And, we're going to be about our business. I'm passionate about what we do. I'm passionate about these kids. I'm passionate about Black college athletics. And, that's what it's all about. And, in order for us to go places that we haven't been, to take the game, to take our programs and our kids places we haven't been, it requires us to do things different. And my goal and my hope is that, any athletic department around the country, that you can see, the alignment piece of it. Hey, this didn't happen overnight. I'll be honest with you, my staff, I've kind of neglected them the past 2 weeks. I'm like, don't call me, focus on what you need to focus on. I've literally been almost like a Democratic Party whip, on the phone and just trying to get that alignment. But again, I think when you can articulate a vision and give people a pathway to get there, that was easy for my president and my board of trustees to get on board and to have that trust in me. And then, quite frankly, to be able to reach out to another conference and do that in a very professional decorum, so that it's not out there. And quite frankly, that takes some work. That takes some allies, and we were able to do it in very short form.
Eddie Gosha, I wanted to ask this question in regards to, you talked a little bit about the synergy, but you mentioned the ADs around this conference. You mentioned Jennifer Lynn Williams, Ashley Robinson at Jackson State, but this collective group of athletic directors that are in the conference, talk about, I guess, this group that has this sort of dynamic dynamism, if you will, if that's the word, but just this group moving forward under the direction of the Commissioner, Charles McClelland.
Well, I'll tell you this. I think, I'm very excited about seeing what this conference will do under his leadership. Again, I think very progressive in every facet of the game. He serves on several the NCAA basketball committee that is really, going to give us some insight and strategic scheduling. And so this is it's a very, very thought out process about the potential of what this league could be. Again, geographically, we're in the South where football is king, and so being able to kind of capitalize on that. We've got cities, quite frankly, who are putting money on the table because they want to see our brands, and so those are the same things that are happening at the Power 5 level. When they go play these neutral site games, you've got cities and counties loading up the Brinks trucks to get them there, and I think that's one of the things that we haven't really capitalized. Our business model with Bethune-Cookman is great. I own a football game as an institution. I'm not working through a promoter. I'm not working through. So when you start talking this new wave of thought process and revenue generation, I'm serious about it. And, and again, I think for those who may have seen some of my presentation, and, I think you can see that the pathway forward for us to really, elevate who we are and where we are.
Sure thing.
All right, Mr. Gosha, this is Mike Washington again, and congratulations to you and the entire administrative staff. It seemed like there was a whole lot of unanimous action going on right there. Everything was unanimous, boy. Man, y'all got in the room, and that must have been some good tea y'all were sipping in that room. I'll leave it there. But I want to put you on the spot, maybe an abstract question. Now that this has happened and it, pretty much is official, what excites you the most about this move? What two matchups, football wise? What, is it the band going in? I'm going to ask you to give me at least 3 things that excite you the most about this move as the AD, VP of Athletics for FAMU. What 3 things about the SWAC and going to the SWAC excite you the most? That just keep you up at night and you can't go to sleep?
So I think there's 3 things. Number one, I think the, you talked about it, the fanfare, the pageantry that this brand of intercollegiate athletics, to be a part of that week in, week out. We got a taste of it in some of our non-conference games, and we get a taste of it in the Florida Classic. But no. This is week in, week out. It's almost somebody actually explained this. They said, this is like the FCS version of the SEC. I said, you're right.
It is,
right?
actually.
And so that's what we want. And I tell everybody, hey, family, we want to smoke. Hey, we that's what we're about. And to be able to march the incomparable marching 100 in anybody's stadium and show up and show out. Man,
careful now.
When
Colonel Clark mentioned the bands, he got cut off. So I just
I'm just telling you hadn't seen nothing like Dr. Shelby Chipman and our marching 100. So just excited to see that and showcase that around this country. So that would be the first thing. The second thing is, again, for our student athletes and our student experience. Even our SGA president was like, "Oh man, like this is huge." Our students have gone in. There is a thing called FAMU Twitter. Don't get it twisted. Our kids and our fans and our sport will go in. Okay, so just to see that thing go crazy. And then I would say third, I talked about being from Birmingham and experiencing the Magic City Classic and all of those type of things, and to play against those perennial brands where, hey, I know if we go to Montgomery or Huntsville, it's about to be something special. I know when we go to Baton Rouge, it's going to be an electric atmosphere, or when we roll up into Jackson, Mississippi, and so. Just to be a part of that culture, and again, I just want to let everybody know, when FAMU comes, we coming all the way. So we coming with some rattlers that's ready to strike. We coming with a band that's second to none. And again, like I told you, I put my coach against anyone in the country, and so we're excited to get this thing going.
Yes, I have a question for Coach Willie Shotgun Simmons that I've heard people call him over the years in regards to that. In terms of your preparation of your football team, obviously we talked a little bit about how you focus on this year, but also looking at next year. Strategically, you have any opportunity to take these trips across the SWAC, one on the East Division of the SWAC as a coordinator from Alcorn State, and then obviously as the head football coach on the Western Division in regards to Prairie View A&M University. How do you see that coming together in regards to developing your platform of working with your assistant coaches so they understand the dynamics of traveling through the SWAC, preparing from that perspective, and in regards to certain destinations in regards to that? Is there any different type of preparation that you have them consider or look at in regards to particular places they have to play in the SWAC?
Well, the good thing about it, 5 out of my 9 full-time coaches have experience in the SWAC. James Spady, my associate head coach, tight ends coach, was the head coach at Alabama A&M for 4 years. He's been an offensive coordinator at Grambling under Rob Broadway. Both coordinators on offense, Coach Alex Jackson, my O-line coach, and Coach KJ Black, my quarterbacks coach, both spent time in the SWAC. KJ played at Prairie View. Coach Jackson was offensive coordinator at Mississippi Valley State for a few years. My defensive coordinator, Coach Ralph Street, coached with me at Alcorn, and also was with me at Prairie View A&M. And then Coach Brandon Sharp was with me at Prairie View A&M as well. So, we're very familiar with the conference. That's why there was so much excitement amongst us as coaches, because we remember, what it's like, life in the SWAC. We know what it's like to travel into Norman, Mississippi. We know what it's like to go up to Jackson, to go into Baton Rouge, and to get dressed and have to walk through that crowd of eating good food and smelling good food and trying to get ready to go play a football game. So, we're looking forward to it. My football team is definitely looking forward to it, like I said before. And like, VP said, it's kind of like the SEC, whereas, you got those big marquee rivalries every week. And, you're going into a hostile environment every single Saturday. And I think our guys, they'll thrive in those environments. Just, again, nothing against the MEAC, and we have a lot of respect for the members of the MEAC, but a lot of those institutions way up north in certain cases, obviously the fan following isn't as great, so to speak, and so but there wasn't a southern environment in the MEAC outside of FAMU. There's not an Alcorn environment, a Jackson State environment. It's the reason why the SWAC has led FCS in attendance 42 out of 43 years because they love their football in that conference, and you're talking about a university in Florida A&M that's perennially one of the leading schools in the country as far as attendance. And so we're going to add to that. And so it's a great marriage. We're looking forward to it. And again, We know we have business to take care of in 2020, but in our minds, imagine what that story will look like if we win the Celebration Bowl in 2020 as a member of the MEAC, and then come in the first year in 2021 and repeat but as a member of the Southwest Athletic Conference.
That sounds like the coach I know. Thank you.
Yeah, I've heard that, Coach Simmons, before.
You know, and on that note, I think that is a great point for us to take a break, as we have we've been fortunate enough to been joined not only by AD Gosha, Colonel Greg Clark, and head coach Willie Simmons. We're going to take a short break. Hopefully, I'm not sure if any of those gentlemen, if you're able to stay, great. And we understand you guys may have busy schedules and a lot of other things. If you have to leave, we appreciate your time. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be speaking with the commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Dr. Charles McClelland. So stay with us. We'll be back right after this short break.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Aves' record. 202 and 36, I think. Some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar.
One, this is Dr. Kenyatta Cavil as we're doing a joint broadcast between Brian and AD and Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU SportsLab. With that, we have Dr. Charles McClelland, the Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, joining us to talk about today's events. As many of you all followed us yesterday, and really kicked off in a formal process in regards to the subcommittee of Board of Trustees at Florida A&M University voting unanimously 5-0 to push this to a board vote in regards to the athletic program at Florida A&M University moving from the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference and seeking to join the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So with that part, we know that took place and it was unanimously voted by a proxy agenda vote in regards to carrying it through this morning from the Board of Trustees. And then we understood quickly that it started meaning that the Southwestern Athletic Conference needed to activate. So with that, I'd like to welcome Dr. Charles McClelland, the current commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And if you would first tell us a little bit about what that process was like and the updated news that you can provide from us from an official standpoint.
Well, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you having me on your show. And I know VP Gosha, I think he's still on. I would like to, address him. I think that he did an outstanding job. I got an opportunity to listen to the Special Committee on Athletics presentation yesterday. And I tell you, VP Gosha, you made me wanted to join the SWAC. And I'm already you did a heck of a job. So, it's an honor to have Florida A&M to even want to be a part of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. But it's an even greater honor to look at, see, hear, and witness what you had to do, what your chairman had to do, what your president had to do in order to make this a reality. I'm telling this to you personally. I know Willie Shotgun Simmons. I know Willie well. I don't think I beat him yet in the sport of football. He actually was part of the reason why I became commissioner, because I couldn't beat him in football and they retired me out. We welcome you. This is going to be a great run, and I want to tell all of the Rattler Nation, you have joined the family. We're going to take care of you, and we're going to do everything that's within our power to make sure that your university is successful, meet all of your mission, your goals and objectives. And by the way, you're going to have packed stadiums and you're going to have a really good time. There's nothing like the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I might need to steal that from you guys, the Black SEC. But the only problem with that is we are the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So thank you, VP Gosha.
I appreciate that, Commissioner, and we are fired up and excited about this move. So we appreciate your leadership and looking forward to great things.
Sure. And before you get off, I would just like to let you know we did have our Council of Presidents and Chancellors meeting at 4:30 Central. It concluded around 5:15 Central, and that vote was unanimous. 10-0 to accept Florida A&M as a full member in 2021 into the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So other than the agreement needs to be signed, it's official. Rattler Nation is a part of SWAC Nation. So I apologize for all of that, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil. That was a 5-minute rant, and I forgot your question.
No problem. I'll come back to it, and I think that was appropriate. And really, that was the question. What was the updated news? And you just provided it appropriately. So I thank you for sharing that, because that's what a lot of people wanted to know. What was the official stance? Colonel Clark gave us some breaking news in regards to getting it from his Board of Regents. And so we've heard it from the Florida A&M Board of Trustees side, and we just got it confirmed from the Commissioner of the SWAC in regards to that. So that was appropriate. With that, I'm going to allow Kofi to jump in here and ask you a follow-up question, and then we'll go to AD, and we'll keep this going to provide some updated, because there are some great questions that some of our followers want to ask you, but the panel is closing up on those questions as well. So, Kofi, if you would, please chime in.
Yeah, my question is for both Coach Willie Simmons as well as Colonel Clark, and this is just in reference to a lot of the things COVID-19 has affected. Are there any plans with us going forward with any video conferences or video fundraising activities just to keep the momentum going, because this is a great time?
Well, from the Alumni Association standpoint of view, I mean, we're having to get creative, of course. As I told you earlier, we had to move our national convention to Orlando, Florida, but there's some business that we have to get done with our budget before submitting it to the Board of Trustees, and we're going to do something virtually like that July the 18th. But we're also coming into our membership year. So one of the things we're doing on the 27th is a big membership party featuring a couple of our top DJs within the Rattler Nation, and we're going to be doing membership drives around that. So people come in, have a good time, and pay your dues to the Alumni Association and listen to some music. So we are getting creative with this COVID. And I suppose that in the years to come that, we'll certainly look at these kind of things as cost savings mechanism to use Zoom. And my seasoned Rattlers, it's almost funny to see them, but they're doing it. They're learning this social media stuff, and they're doing it. So yeah, we will see. We'll see. I think that was a great question, and we're going to continue to try to use technology as much as possible. And then going into, as we start to advertise for our football season, we certainly gonna use it a lot. So looking forward to it. We're gonna try to get the commissioner on with us with the Rattler Nation sometime, probably the end of this month. I'm putting him on the spot here, but he's gonna have to carve the time out to come see the nation. And we'll probably do that at the end of this month to introduce the Rattler Nation to our commissioner and hear his vision, and we'll bring the AD and the coach and everybody else on to do that. So we're going to continue to do that and continue to touch the people wherever they are. Great question.
This is Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, and I'm going to let Charles respond to that, because I know Charles that he wants to get in there But this is Dr. Kenyatta Cavil with the AD SportsWrap show, joint show with Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington. Charles, if you would, please, Commissioner Charles, please respond to that.
Yeah, Colonel Clark, I didn't know you were on. First of all, it's good seeing you again.
Yes, sir. You too.
When you do that membership drive, add a Meet the Commissioner to it. Wherever it is, I'll be there. So put me in. And whatever you need, Zoom calls or whatever, I'm going to be there. And I appreciate all of your support. Never have I seen, such unity with an alumni association and a national alumni president. You take a lot of the credit as well of getting the Rattler Nation behind this move. And I want everyone to know the significant impact that you made, because it was significant. And without you and the alumni, I don't think this thing could have gotten done. So I would like to thank you as well.
Well, thank you so much. We certainly glad to do it, and you gave us a roadmap. And I mean, social media is going crazy right now. Everybody's quite happy in the move that we make, and they're looking forward to meeting you and hearing your vision. And they're good people. They're good people. So looking forward to seeing you.
I'm excited.
Okay.
With that, we'll follow up and let AD jump in with the next question, and then we'll have one with Mike.
Dr. McClelland, as a Rattler alumni, I want to thank you for allowing us to come into your neighborhood, first of all.
You're the one that started all of this stuff with that article you wrote. I recognize you. I've been meaning to talk to you. Go ahead. I'm going to let you answer your question.
Oh, I don't know if I want to thank you for that compliment or get mad at that compliment. Cause anyway, but all seriousness aside, Doc, right? The SWAC has led the FCS in attendance for, and I'm not even going to misquote you, but as long as probably everybody can remember, I think there's only been 1 year in like the last 40 years where the SWAC has not led the FCS in attendance. Currently, last year, you had 3 of the top 7 and 6 of the top 30 in attendance. You're adding a Florida A&M who finished number 10, and probably if it were not for that hurricane game that forced their game to get moved from a Saturday to a Sunday, would have been higher up in that top 10. What does a FAMU coming to the SWAC mean for the SWAC brand, and especially when it comes to attendance and future marketing? What does that really mean to the conference? Can you quantify that for us or qualify that for us a little bit further?
Yes, we hit the lottery, quite simply. If you had to draw up a school that you wanted within our geographical footprint with the same academic mission, with similar athletic budgets, with the same footprint of history, tradition, and culture, you would have had to draw up Florida A&M, basically from scratch. And I'm saying I don't think that you could have drawn it up as good as Florida A&M if you were trying to draw that up. And that's why I said we hit the lottery. I've been commissioner for 2 years, and coming in as the Southwestern Athletic Conference, I've said this, and I've heard Dr. Cavil say it on your show and his show. We were not necessarily in the mode of looking to expand. What we were trying to do was to get our house in order, right? We wanted to make sure that we increased sponsorships. We wanted to make sure that we got us a permanent home. We are 100 years old this year, so there were a lot of check marks that we had to make. We're working on APR. We're working on fundraising. We're working on budget. We're working on deals. We're working on branding. And all of a sudden, here comes your dream institution to add, Florida A&M, saying, hey, is it a possibility for you to take a look at us, and is it a possibility for us to take a look at you? And it was a resounding yes. I know that there's been a lot of written. I know you wrote your article. I was not sure that this was going to happen until 12:45 Central Standard Time on today. So this is a dream come true for the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I think that we are a natural fit. If Florida A&M was looking for somewhere to go, there was no other place for them to go but to the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And I got this from your resident historian, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, 42 of the last 43 years, but the only year we did not lead was Hurricane Katrina year. So had it not been for Hurricane Katrina, it would be 43 out of 43. So you're talking average attendance of 20,000. You're talking Jackson State upward of 33,000 per game. So can you imagine? I know you said the SEC of black college football, but can you imagine being a football coach in the Southwestern Athletic Conference right now? You're going to have to bring your A game, and it's not going to be an easy week because it is so competitive now. So when you start talking about building a conference to the point to where you want to start doing some things greater than what you can imagine, it starts with bringing in an institution like Florida A&M. So again, we hit the lottery, and we're just as excited about having Florida A&M as Florida A&M is excited about being in the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
Mike, please jump in there and ask your follow-up question.
Yes, Dr. McClelland. With this move, and I'll ask a similar question to VP Gosha. The cat's out the bag now. Everyone is excited. You know, you heard social media is going crazy. Now, from your perspective, the SWAC, at the SWAC conference, what are the next 3 or 4 critical, strategic, and prioritized steps to pave the way for a smooth transition? Obviously, we have to get through the 2020 season with COVID-19, but to me, what's critical in paving that way for a smooth transition? Is it realignment considerations? Is it others? Prioritize them, if you will.
Mike, that's that Prairie View A&M University education coming out in an indirect way to ask me, are we looking for a So I'm going to go on and answer your question. Again, we did not necessarily position ourselves for expansion. Florida A&M has come into our league, and it is a remarkable catch for us. Ideally, in order to sustain divisions, you have to have that 12th team. So we are now eyes wide open for that 12th team. But let me be absolutely clear about this point. We are not going to expand for the sake of expanding. There is a pathway to have 11 teams. And I've seen some of the debates on a lot of the social media. Do you have an uneven division? Do you have an uneven division and then you swap that team every other year? So the East has 6 in one year and the West has 6 in the other year. I don't know the answer to that question yet, but I can tell you the model that I personally have been studying the most, and that is the old Big Ten model and the current Big 12 model, where you'll have 11 teams. We still will maintain our 8-game format. So that will allow teams to be able to play 8 conference games, and you will still have 2 conference teams that you don't play. So coming into 2020 season, it's 8 games, and then you have 1 team that will rotate off of your schedule for 2 years. We still will maintain that 8-game schedule if we have 10 teams, 11 teams, 12 teams, 20 teams. We're going to have that 8 game. So you could rotate on and off. Another major consideration for us was a consideration for FAMU. We don't want Texas having to come to Florida twice a year for all of their sports. So we're going to have to look at some divisional play, not just in football, but in most of our other sports. When it comes to basketball, with 11 teams in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, do we go from 18 games or to 20 games? When you start looking at the current format for NCAA, and I know you've talked a lot about the multi-team events and the NCAA has the new legislation, a lot of facts behind the MTE is if we eliminated MTEs, then the mid-major institutions would not have a great opportunity to be able to play on a neutral site some schools that they could possibly beat. It's going to be impossible to go in a game guarantee and win. You'll win one every now and then. The best probability is to play on a neutral court and get some of those teams that you probably could beat. Not necessarily a mid-major, but a lower high major. You can't get that in the MTE. The reason why you see the mid-major teams going against or rallying against MTEs is because you take that opportunity away, and all of the Autonomy 5 institutions are moving from 18 games to 20 games. So if they move from 18 games to 20 games and take away the MTEs, there are no games for us, the mid-majors, to play. I say all of that to say, from a SWAC's perspective, do we want to stay at 18 or do we want to go to 20? those are going to be some key decisions that we have to make. But from a scheduling standpoint, there are models out there that we will continue to look at, and we're going to do the best thing for the Southwestern Athletic Conference. But I want to go back to your original indirect question. 12 is the ideal number, but we don't have to get to 12. We can stay at 11, but 12 is the ideal number. So we are open to listening, which is probably not the position that we took just 6 months ago. But now we realize that in order for us to be able to fulfill what we need to fulfill, especially from a travel perspective, it makes sense to bring in a 12 team. It makes sense to have a geographical footprint where you have even numbers in the East and even numbers in the West. Possibly use the Mississippi River as a dividing line, and you have the East play the East and the West play the West. And then you have some crossover. You have Mississippi Valley State at that line. You have Jackson at that line. You have Alcorn at that line. You have Southern at that line. And for all practical purposes, you have Grambling at that line. So you have 5 teams that you theoretically could play in other divisions that are 3 hours drive from each other. So there are a lot of possibilities, but to me, they're all exciting possibilities. I haven't been faced with a challenging problem yet that says, oh, this is going to destroy. All of the issues that I'm seeing right now are issues to say we got to make the right call, because if we make the right call, it's going to blow this thing up. So I'm really excited to be a commissioner, to be in this situation, to have to make these calls. I'm excited. I hope I answered your indirect question.
Yes, you indirectly answered. No, in all seriousness, thank you very much for that answer, and thank you for being forthcoming. I appreciate that.
No problem.
We always see that coming from Mike with those types of questions that go into the data. With that, this is Dr. Cavil, Kenyatta Cavil, with a joint production of SportsWrap of Brian and AD, as well as Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU SportsLab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. With that, we're going to let Charles follow up with his question for the Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, Dr. Charles McClelland.
Yes, Dr. McClelland. Obviously, Florida A&M, a national brand, tremendous history. But I wanted to ask this question for the Florida A&M fan who's basically grown up a MEAC fan. What are they getting now with the Southwestern Athletic Conference, especially the initiatives that you brought in place over the last 2 years?
Yeah, I appreciate that question coming from a Jackson State Tiger as well. and I will start with that. You know, I heard a lot of the students of FAMU because they had that experience at Southern University, right? But when you start talking about some of the initiatives that we put in, I'm going to put a pause there and just think about being able to go in that environment at Southern, and then the next week you have to go in the environment at Jackson State, right? Mm-hmm. And could you imagine a FAMU Jackson State football game that's actually a conference game to decide who gets to go to the SWAC championship, right? Yeah. Can you imagine a Florida A&M game at Grambling, or a Grambling game at Florida A&M that decides who gets to go to the SWAC championship? And you could say that at Alabama State, you could say that at Alabama A&M. And let's not take away from Texas. Florida A&M has a very large alumni base in the state of Texas. Yeah. This allows Florida to recruit Texas as well as Texas now can recruit Florida. I heard some comments from Florida A&M talking about now this puts us in Alabama. It's great football in Alabama, right? This just closes our footprint. So when you start talking about our initiatives start there, bringing a quality product to our constituents. And I think that has to energize the FAMU nation, knowing that you can take their world-renowned band, right, and you can now go week to week, even in a stone's throw to at least 6 of our institutions, right, that you could drive, do your thing, and if you need to, come on back. I heard the SGA president talk about that. You know, our ability to be able to get that cultural experience. And let's make no mistake about it. You guys joked about it. This does make us a league that is extremely strong. This makes us a league that has a lot of prominent athletic programs, not just from a footballs perspective. Just look at what FAMU is going to add to men and women's basketball. Look at what they're going to add in baseball, softball, soccer. Not soccer, but track. I mean, they're going to be able to add a significant piece of competitiveness to the Southwestern Athletic Conference that their fan base is going to be able to touch. And let's not, forget that the SWAC does have a relationship with Atlanta. FAMU has been looking to get in Atlanta, right? So Mayor Keisha Bottoms, a FAMU graduate, we got to send her a hat, right? We got to send her a SWAC hat. I mean, we're going to draw a circle around this thing, and from a strategic standpoint, we got some plans. We talked about the deal with CityJet. We talked about our ability to be able to do some different things with our corporate sponsors. We talked about sharing corporate sponsors, giving our schools the ability to have the autonomy to do some of the things that they need to do with, let's say, with their apparel and some of their significant rights. But, one of the things that I thought about, Charles, and you talk about some things that get FAMU excited. I'm not just thinking about FAMU, but the entire thing. Look at these Battle of the Bands, right? And the Honda Battle of the Bands, the 50 and 60,000 people in there, and the Battle of the Bands that's in Houston that had 30 or 40,000. Well, you're trying to tell me I got Florida A&M, I got Alabama State, I got Alabama A&M, I got Jackson State, the Boom, I got Alcorn, the Sounds of Dynamite, right? I got Southern, I got Grambling. Grambling really one of the only bands that have even had their own TV show and Coke commercial, right? They still have a Coke commercial. They had a Coke commercial when I was a kid that I used to watch. I don't understand how they do that, right? And then you go Mississippi Valley State, playing that Devil's Gun. And then Arkansas at Pine Bluff has an outstanding band, Texas Southern Prairie View. I take those 11 bands, put them in a dome, I'm selling the thing out, right? We keep the money. Why am I going to give it to a third party? I have the greatest assets at my hand now. What we have to do is strategically think on how we can leverage our assets and put that money back into the hands of our member institutions. And I would say this, and I've said it publicly, we have identified over the last 2 years what it takes to run the Southwestern Athletic Conference. The rest of that is going to go back to the member institutions. So as we did, for example, with one of our major sponsors, cricket. As an athletics director, I always had issue with the Southwestern Athletic Conference taking all of my rights, right? I had rights. I had an insurance company. I lost them because SWAC had an insurance. I wanted my own apparel deal. I wanted my own. My philosophy is I can still get conference-wide deals and allow you to keep your brand, keep your deals. You look at cricket, one of our major sponsors. Cricket showed up to every campus. Each campus had an opportunity to keep their right at that category. And because they allowed cricket to come in and set up in the tailgates, we took money from the check that we got from cricket and we're sending it directly to every 10-member institution, right? So we're creating these deals because we know that we have assets to sell, but we're not going to take the rights of the institution. We're going to deliver that money back to the school. So we're trying to come up with new models, financial models, because this SWAC championship game that has allowed us to really get this energy and excitement and give that money back to the schools. That was the model that we wanted to find and perfect. Innovative ways to put significant revenue back into the hands of the schools. So FAMU, you should be excited. That philosophy isn't going to change. And very clearly, you are going to enhance our ability to be able to go out and do such things.
Certainly, again, this is Dr. Kenyatta Cavil with a joint project with BCSN in terms of the SportsWrap with Brian and AD, and Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU SportsLab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. With that, we have many of our guests on here. I want to make sure that we get everybody in here. Again, Colonel Greg Clark, National Alumni Association for Florida A&M University President. We had a VP of Athletic, Kortne Gosha, on. He had to jump off. We also had head football coach, Willie Simmons, on. But currently now we have the Southwestern Athletic Conference Commissioner, Dr. Charles McClelland, as he's filling our questions. We have a question that's going to go to Kofi, and then we're going to go back to Brian. But before we do that, there was a question up there in regards to the MTE terminology. That is a NCAA terminology that Charles was using, Dr. McClelland, excuse me. Multi-team event. Legislation would allow Division I schools to schedule up to 28 regular season games and participate in one multi-team event that includes up to 3 games, scheduling 29 regular season games and multi-team events that includes up to 2 games, or scheduling 29 games without participating. So listeners out there following us and jumping on, and with that, before I go back to Kofi to allow him with his question, I did want to get in a couple of these questions that are coming in from our fans out there to make sure we keep them engaged and that we are following. So if you would, the first question, Colonel Clark gave us some insight in terms of some of the dialogue that took place, and gave us a sneak peek, if you would, in regards to the strategic plan. And I know you have talked about this to some framework, obviously, Dr. McClelland, but of that plan, what components or parts of that plan in terms of long-term vision, I should say, are you able to share with us? Because that's a question that Irvin Lorenzo wanted to hear out there.
That's a great question, and I'm gonna try to tread on this lightly because a lot of it will take some legislation. I've always been open and honest, and if it gets me in trouble, I guess it just gets me in trouble. But I foresee us with the potential of trying to look at a Black College FBS conference, right? When you start looking at the branding that we have and the size of crowds, the economic impact that we make to these cities, and this is a long-range plan. This is going to take approval by conference commissioners, NCAA. There's a lot that we have to do, but my vision is a strong Black college conference that participates in the FBS realm. And when we say FBS, does that mean that we have to go play, other FBS schools? We have enough teams in our league to where we play our own game. We're playing game guarantees now, but the difference between a game guarantee as an FCS institution, especially in the SWAC, is on the high end $600,000. But if we change that to become FBS, which is football bowl subdivision, which means you go from 63 scholarships to 85 scholarships, that game guarantee now is 1.2, 1.5 million. When you start looking at television contracts, you're now in the millions, right? So we take those millions and we give it back to our 11 member institutions to help them raise their scholarship levels from 63 to 85. And now we participate in bowl games. It's not just Celebration Bowl. We still participate in the Celebration Bowl, and now we can go participate in other bowls. So the long range strategic plan is for us to continue to strengthen our league to the point that we as an 11 member conference can all together make that leap. And I want to say this very clearly. I don't want to turn it into a military terminology, but we're not going to leave anybody behind. We are unified as a conference. And I say, if anybody in the Southwestern Athletic Conference should have been put out, it was Prairie View A&M University, the charter member of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And for those of you that don't know, I am a graduate of Prairie View, and I was the athletics director at Prairie View. We lost 86, maybe I had that number wrong, 85, 86 football games in a row, right? We still hold that record. We hold the record for the most consecutive basketball losses. We had the lowest budget in the Southwestern Athletic Conference. And if Prairie View can go from 86 straight football losses to where they are now as one of the perennial Black college schools, then nobody should be left behind. If the Southwestern Athletic Conference gave Prairie View every opportunity, and Prairie View stuck with the Southwestern Athletic Conference when Prairie View was a powerhouse and the SWAC stuck with Prairie View, we're not going to leave anybody behind. So I also want to put that on the record as well. There is a pathway for all of our institutions to make that from the transition of where we are now to ultimately to where we want to go. But that's globally. I think more from a immediate standpoint, capitalize on the brand and the marketing. We have some work to do in that regard. We have to shore up, some of our multimedia contracts. We would like to see some additional flexibility. I think ESPN is a great partner of ours, but I've always said I would like for ESPN to take the games that they want to show and then give me the rest of the games for me to be able to go out and sell in other markets. So there's some work to do there. But again, when you do the right things, when you bring in a FAMU, when you have all of these things going for you, you take bargaining power to the table. FAMU just added another huge bargaining chip when we go back to the tables of all of these entities to try to create these deals for our conference.
Certainly, and I think you broke into Dwight Moore's part of his question, so we were able to answer that in terms of that. So we'll break in back and forth as we have some of the people streaming and asking questions. With that, I want to get back, and Kofi had a question that he wanted to jump in and ask you as well.
Yes, Commissioner, I know that you all talked about that Prairie View education and a number of different things, and how Prairie View people have a tendency to lead into questions. At FAMU, we're taught to ask direct questions.
There you go.
So I want to ask, how close with the dream scenario possibly being a Tennessee State or possibly even Bethune, what's the reality with that possibly happening, and what would it take for that to happen? And I guess is there a real possibility that could happen?
I don't know. I have not talked to the administration at Bethune-Cookman, nor have I talked to the administration at Tennessee State. My hope is, Kofi, that entities will look at the Southwestern Athletic Conference now and say, hey, that's a league in which we need to be a part of. That's a league in which we can make money from a fan standpoint. That's a league that we can make money from a branding standpoint. And that's a league that we can go in and compete and have the opportunity to win championships and go to the NCAA. So I know that has been the hot topic debate, who's going to be the 12th team. We haven't even started that process yet, and I want to be extremely clear about that. I even heard something out there, this will be breaking on your show. Y'all getting a lot of breaking information. I saw it.
Break it.
That we've extended an invitation to South Carolina State. We've never talked to South Carolina State. I know Stacy from being an athletic director at Alabama State. Last time I talked to Stacy was at the national NCAA National Convention in January. So none of that is true.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Before they jump into that one, as you were talking about the bands.
At this point, we're kind of savoring this Florida A&M. I would like to crack a bottle of wine tonight and drink it with my wife before we start talking about 12th member and expansion. First things first. And to be very honest,
we had to get that in.
But I do want to dispel a lot of the misinformation.
Yes, sir.
We have not extended invitations. We have not sought after anybody to join the SWAC. When this opportunity came, when VP Gosha reached out, when I had opportunity to talk to Colonel Clark, when I had opportunity to talk to Chairman Lawson, we were taking this thing step by step. Again, I was not 100% confident because I know how these things go. FAMU said, hey, if we wanted to come to the SWAC, would you be willing to accept? My answer to them was, who would not, right? Who wouldn't want FAMU? I allowed that, and if you know anything about me, you know that I do not put the cart before the horse, and I don't count my chickens before they hatch. And I say that because I have done that before, and I've gotten my feelings hurt. So I understand that there is a right way to do things, and we try to do them the right way at all times.
Certainly with that, I think we had Brian that wanted a follow-up question, but before we have Brian ready to jump in here, wanted to give some more shout-outs for those that are following us. Willie Alex Hines, he jumps in there, and he kind of had that question about Tennessee State, so I'm glad you answered that. Dwight Moore, Marching 100. Belinda Johnson, we are ready to provide the smoke. So we know we talking about those Alcorn Braves down there as they get excited and get it going. Anthony Weston wanted to make sure that y'all understand that you still got to come to Huntsville, Alabama, in terms of Alabama A&M, and they plan to be back in the football business and basketball as well. Giving a little shout out there. We have Carlos representing Southern University checking us out today with his great show that he does every Saturday from the 10 to 12 in terms of Carlos Brown show. So just wanted to give a shout out to a couple of folks that are following us and that have stick with us, die-hard fans, true fans. We getting FAMU Rattlers getting on board. North Carolina A&T Aggies are out there, and we know how that goes in that rivalry. So we'll have another part to be able to poke a little more at the stick at the Aggies, since the Florida A&M is part of the SWAC rivalry. So we'll make sure we'll do our part to let them know how we feel about these Aggies now. And we'll continue to push that envelope as well in regards to let them know that we're not playing around with Tennessee State Tigers. They need to figure out what they want to do if they want to be this weekend going forward. With that, officially, let me do that kind of trash talking for my commissioner, so he can do what he's supposed to do on the business side and don't have to do it. Brian, if you would jump in here and get me out of this trouble that I might find myself in with my Commissioner Dr. Charles McClelland, please. Thank you.
I got you, Dr. Bill. Dr. McClelland, thank you again for coming on and joining us. It's been I'm sure it's been a whirlwind 48 hours, not only just for you, but as well as Rattler Nation as well. My question, over the last couple of years, 4 or 5 years, we've seen the growth of, I think, of Division I FCS Black College athletics through events like the MEAC SWAC Challenge as well as the Celebration Bowl. And this move, as great as it is for Florida A&M and the SWAC, we'd have to say that after 2020, things will change. And so I'm wondering if you can maybe speak on your thoughts as you think about what potentially might change in terms of the postseason bowl, the Celebration Bowl, the beginning of the year contest between the MEAC and SWAC. Maybe just your thoughts on the change that is going to occur in Black college football, with not only FAMU leaving, but of course North Carolina A&T will be leaving the MEAC, and then of course we've seen recently, Hampton having left the MEAC as well.
Well, first of all, let me say, Commissioner Thomas is a great commissioner. He accepted me in when I became commissioner. He's mentored me, and one of the things that I wanted to make sure is that I handled this thing correctly. I got no great pleasure in the fact that Florida A&M was in the MEAC and they wanted to leave, and they decided that SWAC was the place that they wanted to be. I've had several conversations with Commissioner. I know he's disappointed, and I know he's probably angry at me for accepting. I do have a board as well, and they tell me what to do sometimes, but I have the utmost confidence in Commissioner Thomas, and let's make no mistake about it. I know him well. He has a plan. I don't foresee the MEAC going anywhere. I foresee him aggressively bringing membership back to the point to where the MEAC have the number of teams that they had previously. I think when you look at through the historical perspective of all conferences, teams come, teams go, right? That's what happens. But strong commissioners such as Dr. Dennis Thomas always does the right thing to keep that league moving forward. So I have no question in my mind that there will be a SWAC MEAC challenge. I heard you say MEAC SWAC challenge, SWAC MEAC challenge. Because SWAC is always first, because you said we were the Black SEC, so you got to start putting SWAC first. SWAC MEAC challenge.
That's right.
My apologies.
Right, there you go. The official name is MEAC SWAC, but I'm a SWAC guy. I always have to put SWAC first. So I have no doubt that it's not only going to stay, but it's going to continue to get stronger. And quite frankly, I think the rivalries are going to get a little bit more interested now that there have been some league change. So I'm very confident. As a matter of fact, we are in the process of negotiating with ESPN to extend the MEAC SWAC challenge. So I think that the interest is still there. The interest is still great. And I have the utmost respect for Dr. Dennis Thomas and the utmost confidence that he's going to make all of the right strategic moves in order for MEAC to continue to be a dominant player in Division I athletics.
Thank you for that, Charles. With that, I wanted to be respectful of everybody's time. We did that. I know Colonel Clark that you've been patiently with us, and I know you've had a chance to talk with Dr. McClelland. But I wanted to make sure if there was a follow-up question that you might happen that you wanted to get in here and ask Charles. If you didn't, we understand that. And after that, whether you do or not, we'll jump into AD to get in a follow-up question, if you would.
Yeah, and I have about 5 minutes there, Dr. King, out of Cavil.
Thank you. So with that, AD, let's go ahead and allow you to ask this final question with Dr. Charles. We want to be respectful of his time. I think we have Coach Simmons back in here so we can follow up with some questions with Coach Simmons as we didn't get to a great deal of dialogue, and then I'll turn it back over to Brian if he wants to lead that part of the format as we're all here. But with that final question, let's do it this way. Charles, if you would, summarize what this means, and then we'll have a chance to follow up with some additional questions and get some independent. But with your time being limited, and you've been so gracious with your time, let's give you the platform to close this one the way that I know you always will and do, but just give you this platform to put out there where we as fans, first of all, presidents of National Alumni Association, of the media component that support HBCU sports, particularly the SWAC, our presidents, our athletic directors, VPs of athletics. Where do we need to synergize in allowing you to put this conference, Southwestern Athletic Conference, 100 years celebration? Obviously, COVID ripped our ability to celebrate the way we wanted to, but I guess there is a silver lining in that. Look what the gift, if you allow me to use this, the gift of God has brought to us in this strange time. Obviously, with all the things that we're dealing with Mr. Floyd in regards to how that is changing our environments. But how do we understand our role in supporting this great conference, these great institutions, and moving forward? I know that was long, but I wanted to do it appropriately since you're about to close now.
I think our role is significant, and I think we have to lead the charge, especially when you're talking about the political unrest. I think all of us probably have stories of being stopped by the police and, having negative circumstances. I have two boys, and I've taught them to be respectful, but stand up for yourself, right? I'm really afraid as to, this environment that we're in, but I also see a lot of change that is happening because of Mr. Floyd's death. Black, white, Asian, Hispanic, we've all come together, and I think the Southwestern Athletic Conference has to be a leader in that effort. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues, and it started about, the racial impact of police and African Americans. And I led to, not only is it race, it is more social economic at this point, or as much social economic as it is race. When you look at the system that is set up, the system doesn't allow us to be able to get the things that other privileged families have gotten. I even talk about, and I'll throw this to Colonel Clark, when you start talking about alumni donations, and we talk about, well, we don't give like we're supposed to give. We don't have that generational wealth. At best, we are 3-generation college educated. That means me, my father, and my father's father. Well, unfortunately for me, I'm only 2 generations, right? We haven't had that opportunity to get that generational wealth. Mr. Floyd was in an area to which they targeted him, right? From a socio-economic standpoint, others have the ability to be able to rise up out of those types of environments and don't necessarily have to deal with a day-to-day basis. If you're in a lower socioeconomic area, the hood, the ghetto, the project, most of them have police stations in the middle of that project, right? You don't see police stations in the middle of River Oaks, in Houston, Texas, in the middle of the neighborhood. I say all of that to say, we now, the 11 institutions, have a great responsibility, but the greatest opportunity to get these African American minority, first generation, second generation students into our member institutions, educate them on how to fight this oppression the right way, educate them on how to make change the right way, and equip them with all of the tools that they need to do it. That's our responsibility. Athletics is just a window in which our entire institution will be able to do that. You're talking about 11 institutions now with a student population of about 40, 50,000, alumni population probably 2 to 3 million. We need to unite all of those. We're going to have a strategic plan to unite all of those. And we are going to be the beacon. We are going to be the leaders, because I am firmly in the belief the time for change is now, and we have a platform to do so.
Thank you, Dr. Charles McClelland, the Commissioner of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I think that's the perfect way to segue as we close out on your interview in this chapter, brought to you at this joint venture of BCSN with the SportsWrap with Brian and AD, and Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Again, thank you, Charles McClelland, for your time, and we look forward to talking with you more as we continue to move the Southwestern Athletic Conference. I know all the individuals on this platform support what is moving forward. It is dynamic, it is changing, and we're going to do this in regards to not just the SWAC, but as well as the MEAC and all HBCUs. That includes the SIC, CIAA, Gulf Coast Athletic Conference, about doing our part in supporting these institutions, because we know the historical background and what they stand for, and how it is generational change in terms of doing it in a academic and educational, in some ways, athletic format. So thank you for your time again, Charles, and we bid you adieu, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me on your show.
Colonel Clark,
with Brian, I know we are probably up for a break and ready to take a time out.
Well, Doc, hold on. Before we get to that, we're going to let Colonel Clark get his final comments in. I think he may have had something he wanted to say before Commissioner McClelland left, if he has a couple of more seconds.
Absolutely.
Certainly. Sorry about that, brother Colonel Clark. Please jump in.
Not a problem, Dr. Cavil. Appreciate that.
What is all of that you guys are doing on camera?
Say, man, don't start nothing up there, man. You know what comes first. You know that light.
I got you.
So I hit on this a little bit in the initial segment, but I'm gonna take what the commissioner said. One of the things that I'm going to pledge that the FAMU National Alumni Association is going to do to help elevate the status of the alumni associations in the SWAC for the 2 years that I got left in this position. We do some things and we do them well. Governmental affairs, for instance, we have a network, a lobbying network like none other. There's some common ground in the governmental affairs space, where especially for our land grant schools, where we can come together to ensure that we're getting the necessary funds from the government around that. I mean, you got 2 FAMU grads that's on that agriculture committee up there in Washington, who is going to make sure that our 1890 land grant schools get its just due. But in a lot of cases in that space, we're getting our just due from the federal government, but there are some pieces in place where the state is not matching those dollars. Okay, so we need to talk about that, and I need to make sure that these alumni associations are understanding that, because they got to do a lot of this to try to help their presidents, because we're out there. Student recruitment. We continue to recruit over half the freshman class that come into FAMU year after year. It's a machine. It has worked for years and years and years. I'll be, looking at how do we help our presidents with student recruitment. We got a limited number of people that we can touch. That's full-time employees in that area. But we, the alumni, are the biggest ambassadors, and we need to drive our people into our HBCUs. And then the relationship we have with fundraising around our foundation. Our foundation board and our boosters and our National Alumni Association is lockstep. And one thing I love about our president is he includes us at the table when these decisions are made, and so it helps us help him move the narrative. One of the challenges I would say to the commissioner is we need to make sure that the presidents are accepting of their alumni associations, and we need to make sure that alumni associations are accepting of the president. Our jobs are not to run the university. We're there to be a direct support organization of the university, and we should do that. But we've got to make sure we elevate that part of it, because there's some common ground here where I think we can roll over and recruit some students. Because one thing is we don't go out to 5-star guys, but I think that we can start to get some of these guys now, because one thing we got is Big Mama still loves her HBCUs, and that's Big Mama. Big Mama said go to Grambling or FAMU. You gotta end there. But I want to say that that's my commitment to this conference, and my board's commitments to this conference is to help elevate the importance of the Alumni Association. And my friend down at Southern, they're doing a heck of a job inside of their Alumni Association. So, that's where we're going to go, Commissioner. We just need your support and backing, and we're going to try to elevate our association so that we can really drive the narrative to help grow this conference as a whole. So that was my comments, and I support you.
That sounds good, and I appreciate that, Colonel Clark. You might as well make the announcement of the newly formed committee that you're chair of as well.
Let me tell y'all something. Let me tell you, sometimes I open my mouth too much, and he go ahead and make you the darn chair of a Distinguished Alumni Award ceremony, and we need to do it because we do it in the MEAC. We honor distinguished alumni. Actually, it's during the basketball tournament, but of course the commissioner said let's do it during the SWAC championship. It gives the alumni presidents an opportunity to nominate somebody to be the distinguished alumni awardee of the SWAC. And of course, with that awardee comes money. It's not a freebie. And so we want to look at doing that. So for all the alumni presidents in the SWAC, get ready. We're going to be calling you because you're going to sit on the committee. The commission has already said that. So thank you, Doc.
I love it. Challenge made by the commissioner, challenge accepted by the president of the National Alumni Association. Let's go. Let's get it done. With that, we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back with you to give you some more on this breaking news and exciting day with Florida A&M University, better known as the FAMU Rattlers, have joined Southwestern Athletic Conference, better known as the SWAC. Look for more further details on what is transpiring and what's next. Thank you.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Aver's record. 202 and 36, I think, some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
The Cavil Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cavil.
The Creole seasoning is a sodium-free and sugar-free blend that's versatile enough to put on anything. One of the first blends I developed more than 8 years ago, the Creole seasoning has an unmistakable aroma, a bold flavor, and a little heat for character. Every time I open one of these bottles, I hear trumpets and big band music.
For my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching say, make this for my people that don't get to see me, trying to remind you who you are, just like in Romans 3. See, we about to blow across the world just like a day that's breezy. This motivation for the people, and this classic Bible teaching, hey, 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 motivation.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God it was them this time.
We knew it was going to be a battle. Look at Jake Athens' record. 202 and 36, I think. Some off-the-wall figures.
And nobody would play him because they didn't want to take a chance of getting beat. But the truth of it is,
over 46,000 tickets. Blacks were sitting in the east stands. Whites were sitting in the west stands, and the score wound up 34-28.
The only thing we proved that we wasn't inferior, that we were not inferior, and we were not afraid.
For one night, for 160 minutes, we was better than them.
It's like a loot machine. All around town, trying to get down. It's like a loot machine. It's like a loot machine. All around town, trying to get down.
I have in me the ability to make you a better you. So if you work hard, focus, stay on point, you can do anything. Trust me.
We made this track to tell everybody they can follow their dreams.
All right, welcome back to this this reaction show on a day, an historic day, and Black college athletics, and especially for the Southwestern Athletic Conference, as well as Florida A&M University. As earlier this morning or early afternoon, Florida A&M Board of Trustees approved the proposed move for FAMU moving from the MEAC to the SWAC, and then a little later this afternoon, by unanimous vote, the Southwestern Athletic Conference presidents voted to accept Florida A&M as the 11th member of the conference. It's been a great day. You're watching a joint project here between the Black College Sports Network and Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU SportsLab. Not only have you have Doc there, who's wearing his FAMU hat and SWAC hats. You got Charles Bishop, Mike Washington, AD Drew's been here. We had Kofi as well, Kofi Hemingway. Joining us right now, we have Coach Willie Simmons. He is back with us. He is, gracious with his time on such a big day. And so we're going to get right into it here in this final 15 minutes. So if you're watching us on Facebook, get those questions in, and we'll do our best here in this final 15 minutes of the show. I'm going to turn it over to AD Drew. AD, you got some questions for Coach Simmons.
Yeah, and what we're going to do right here, Coach Simmons, we're going to do a little bit of a rapid fire, 1, 2, 3 word answers to a couple of questions. And I know everybody's wants to ask these questions, and I know I've got these in my mind. So with that, we're going to get started. When you go back to the SWAC in 2 years, what venue are you looking forward to most playing in?
Bragg Stadium, our own, against SWAC opponents.
on the road. Let me rephrase that. You got me on that one.
Well, obviously, two come to mind, and those are two institutions I was a part of. So, Alcorn State, obviously, I spent 3 years there from 2012 to 14, and then Florida A&M, where I got my first head coaching opportunity from 2015 to 17. So, those would be the two venues that I'm most looking forward to going back to.
What was the toughest venue? Where the crowd talked the most trash. You got to walk through the crowd. The toughest venue to play in when you were in the SWAC.
Oh, there's so many. It's hard to pick one, but if I had to say the most hostile environment, it's probably the Southern, just because of the setup, where you get dressed, and then where you have to walk through the crowd to get to the stadium. So Southern's probably the most intimidating venue that we played in.
All right, now we're gonna flip that to your current conference in the MEAC. You've done your one around in the MEAC. What has been the toughest venue for you to play in the MEAC on the road?
Probably South Carolina State. Obviously, I only we went there this past year, and there was a lot around the game. Buddy Pugh was going for the all-time winning record there, surpassing legendary coach there. So that was probably the toughest venue that we played in. And then obviously A&T was also a tough one, and we'll go back there this year. So I'd say A&T and South Carolina State.
What are you going to miss most about the MEAC?
I guess going to DC. Obviously, one thing I do with my team is every time we travel, I try to take them somewhere educational, so to get an experience. And we were able to go to the Smithsonian Museum 2 years ago. We went to DC, and that was very impactful for our student athletes. So probably just being able to go back to DC, Baltimore, some historical places with a lot of rich history.
Outside of the travel, what are you going to miss least about the MEAC?
That's it. That's it. Some long trips, man. I mean, the 13, 14, 15-hour bus rides, getting up at 6 a.m. to try to get to the airport in time. So those long bus rides and long trips are what I miss the most. What I miss the least, matter of fact.
What are you looking for with your shift in recruiting now that you may have those opportunities?
Getting back into Texas. I think there's an opportunity now for us to get back in Texas with our footprint. We have a huge alumni association there in Houston, also another one there in Dallas. And so we get calls all the time about recruiting young men out there. We have a lot of contacts from my years as the head coach at Prairie View A&M. So probably been able to get back into Dallas and then even Louisiana, down in New Orleans where we have, pretty good fan base, alumni base down there as well.
All right. Last question, then I'm going to turn it over to somebody else. Give me your 30-second elevator speech that you would sell to a kid and their parent to get them to come to FAMU.
Well, you get the best of both worlds. Obviously, when you're a student athlete, you look at both components. The student side, Florida A&M has been the top public HBCU in the country for a very long time, and our academic ranking is as strong as ever. And so you come here, get a quality education, top-notch education, one that will take you very far in life. And then from an athletic standpoint, our football team is doing tremendous things right now. 9-2 last season, BCSN Black College National Champs, best record in all of Black college football at Division I level. And the sky's the limit. Again, joining a great conference in the SWAC, look forward to a lot of great matchups. But again, I don't think there's a school that can offer this combination of getting a great quality education and playing a great brand of football than you can receive at Florida A&M.
All right, I've taken up enough time with my rapid fire. I'm going to give it over to Charles, then followed by Mike.
Yeah, Coach Simmons, and I wanted to ask this question in terms of what type of SWAC do you think you're coming back to? And I ask it from the standpoint of Alcorn has obviously had their fights with North Carolina A&T, and when we think of the MEAC, we think of a physical conference, a running-heavy conference. But do you think that the Southwestern Athletic Conference has mimicked some of the things that maybe that you guys do very well over in the MEAC?
Well, the one thing I think that the MEAC SWAC Challenge or SWAC MEAC Challenge, however you choose to say it, and the Celebration Bowl has done is that it's pitted a lot of those cross-conference matchups. And so, teams from the MEAC now have the scout teams from the SWAC and vice versa. And so you'll see a lot of similarities. Obviously, the MEAC is right now probably a conference geared more towards interior line play on offensive and defensive side of the ball, whereas the SWAC is more played on the perimeter. And so you look at our blueprint of who we are, where we are. We're speed, we're spread offense, we're speed defense. So our style of play will mesh well in the SWAC, and looking forward to going up against some challenging defense and also other explosive offenses that can put up points in bunches. So, but our blueprint really, I think, matches up well with the schemes that we'll see in the Southwestern Athletic Conference.
And I do have to say, Coach Simmons, the delegation from Jackson is more than happy to welcome you back, and there's museums in Jackson as well. So.
No question about it. Looking forward to seeing them.
All right, Mike, the floor is yours with your question.
Yeah, Coach Simmons, Charles actually kind of took my question. That was a great question, but to piggyback on his second comment, we would welcome you back to the Panther Den, and we'd love to have you. Of course, you'll be on the other side of the sideline, but we'd be happy to welcome you. So along the lines with style of play, we look at offenses and defenses and seeing switches and, just really kind of tease off on Charles's question. Do you see the continued advent of, the spread offense, which seems to be, the predominant offense in the SWAC as well? Do you see the proliferation of that, or do you see more of a balance between run and pass as you transition to the SWAC, or do you see that your offensive scheme changing? I know that kind of tease on Charles a little bit, but it's kind of got a different spin to it.
I kind of lost your last part, Mike, about when you said balance between run and pass. I kind of lost you after that.
Yeah, I said you look at the balance and the proliferation of kind of the spread offense in the SWAC. Do you see that? Do you see your style kind of mimicking that specifically, going to a more of a spread offense, pass heavy, or more of a balance between the run and the pass, just because you're moving to the SWAC?
I think as you see the transformation of football in general, it's an adverse relationship. Well, typically you would think it goes from the top down, from the NFL down to college, from college to high school. It's actually in reverse. So what happens is a lot of the young men that we recruit now out of high school come from spread offenses. And so now we've had to adapt to that as coaches in the college profession, and now a lot of us are becoming more of a quote-unquote spread offense. You look at the NFL now, a lot of the guys that they're drafting out of college now are in spread offenses. So what do you see the NFL do? They're starting to go more to a spread style. So I think you'll continue to see that. Again, the run-pass ratio is philosophical. I think you have your guys who want to be balanced, who want to be 50-50. That's kind of where we are. We want to be somewhere down the middle. You have your guys who don't mind throwing it around 65, 70 times a game, and you have your guys who want to try to run it for 200, 300 yards. So I think you'll still see spread offenses continue to grow, but the style of spread offense that you'll see will be continued on the philosophies and the recruiting efforts of the various programs that employ those type of schemes.
Thanks, Coach.
Hey, Coach, I don't know if you caught or you pay attention to preseason polls and preseason All-American things, but Florida A&M was, I forgot, one of the organizations in the FCS ranked FAMU preseason.
That was Hero Sports.
In their preseason poll. I wasn't going to give them any acknowledgement, AD, but that's okay.
My bad.
That's all right. But also in terms of preseason All-Americans as well, I believe Chris Fadul, Xavier Smith, as well as Keenan Forbes were recognized. I was a little surprised there weren't any other FAMU players, but when you think about those kind of things, if other people, I'm sure, may be asking, were there any guys, any preseason players returning that probably should be on people's watch list?
Well, all three of those guys have definitely earned the right to be to garner those type of accolades. Obviously, Chris Fadul has led the nation in punting in 2018 and finished second in 2019. Xavier Smith went over the 1,000-yard mark last year, was one of the top 10 receivers in the country, and Keenan Forbes, was our best offensive lineman for an offense that threw for almost 300 yards a game. Marquise Bell is a guy that I was surprised didn't receive those type of preseason accolades. He was the first team all-conference safety defensive back last year. One of the top interception guys in the conference, and that's not even what he's known for. He's known for his physicality and style of play. So Actually, one of the guys that I guess service that you don't want to name, I reached out to and even asked him, about Marquise and why he wasn't on the team, and he said he was close to putting him on it. But we have some really good football players here. We have some young men who are putting in a lot of good work, and I think you'll see that reflect on the field this year. The quarterback competition is really steep with Rashawn McKay, who's the incumbent, after being Ryan's backup the last 2 years, and then John Holcomb, the transfer out of Kansas State, who's from right there in Houston. Obviously, I know Dr. Cavil and all those guys will remember that name. So looking forward to seeing what those guys can do to lead this offense. And we feel like we have a lot of great skilled guys on both sides of the ball. And we did a great job in recruiting at the 10th graded class in the country. And so looking forward to seeing it put it all together and how this 2020 team will look compared to teams in the past.
And and as we get ready to close out, Coach, again, want to thank you for your time. I did want to mention, I got to plug your Twitter feed at HC Willie Simmons on Twitter. You have been definitely one of the coaches who I think you have been very honest in your feelings on a couple of subjects over the past week. And I wanted to give you just an opportunity, even as not only just yourself, but some of your players. I've been really encouraged seeing some of the strong opinions and comments from your players and just their thoughts on how they see things. And a lot of talk back and forth about college coaches, college football coaches in particular, caring and showing care and concern for their athletes. And I just wanted to give you the final moment here to kind of talk about how you express your care and concern, not just for your players, but just everything that's going on in our society right now.
Well, definitely. And first, let me give a huge shout out to Dr. Cavil and his crew for having me on their show earlier this week to talk about some of these social issues. And I think it's something that continues to be at the forefront, and definitely this conversation needs to continue. I truly believe we're change agents as college coaches, as student athletes. We're some of the most influential individuals in the country. Everyone knows how much we love college football. Everyone's looking forward to seeing football played this Saturday. And so I think it's our duty to use that platform for good. There are a lot of things that are going on nationally that, frankly, we should all be upset about, and that we should all feel a certain way about. And so I want to make sure I use the platform that I've been given by the grace of God to be a person of influence that a lot of people want to hear from on various issues. And I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to push the envelope. I'm going to continue to challenge my peers, white and black, and of other ethnicities, to speak up and to really continue to have those tough discussions, those uncomfortable conversations with our players, with our constituents, our fan base, our administrations, and America in general, until we can make positive change. And so I think that's our civic duty. And I'm just honored to be able to be a leading voice, and hopefully my voice over the last few weeks have inspired others to step up and do a little bit more so that we can all realize the America that we all dream about.
Thank you, Coach.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Coach. And again, on Twitter, that's at HC Willie Simmons on Twitter. Coach, it's been a great day. We're going to let you go. I know you got a busy day. It's been a busy day. We thank you for your time. Not only do we thank Coach Simmons, but we also have to say thank you to to Colonel Greg Clark, the president of the FAMU National Alumni Association, AD, athletic director Kortne Gosha, and everything he did, and of course the SWAC Commissioner Dr. Charles McClelland, all of them joining us on this historic day, not only in the Southwestern Athletic Conference, but for Florida A&M University as well, as Florida A&M University becomes the 11th member of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and definitely in 2021, the landscape of Black college athletics and especially football will change, as not only FAMU but North Carolina A&T will both be leaving the Mid-Eastern Athletic Conference in 1 year's time. We want to thank you, all of you who've been watching us on Facebook. You've been watching us on Dr. Cavil's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab. I want to make sure you follow everyone on Twitter here. Make sure you follow Dr. Cavil. Make sure to follow him at Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, Cavil. Make sure to follow Charles Bishop at Charles BISH 1953. And then, of course, make sure to find Mike Washington at Mike Wash 88. That's where you can find him. And then, of course, from the Black College Sports Network, my partner, AD Drew, at BCSN Drew. You can find me at DRB365. Kofi Hemingway. Kofi, where are you at on Twitter and all that good stuff, buddy?
I'm at Desir on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook under Kofi Hemingway. So it's pretty much H5 Global on Instagram.
All right, sounds good. And, of course, I want to remind you, you can find the Black College Sports Network at MyBCSN1 on Periscope, Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook. This has been an outstanding show. Doc, I'll give you the last word. Any final thoughts here as we get ready to close out this show?
Thank you. Just wanted to say to everybody, this is a tremendous undertaking. We want to say both thank you to the fans out there that support us, and the only way that we can survive is that you all tell us that you have this interest. And so we decided to partner in regards to how do we make things better and give you the information you need. And so with the collaboration, we were able to get various components of Florida A&M University, obviously the National Alumni Association President Colonel Clark was able to give us on there. We got the Commissioner, Dr. Charles McClelland. We got the VP of Athletics, Kortne Gosha. And we will continue to bring and give you more individuals in terms of finding the information that you want and deserve on HBCUs, namely in this area, the SWAC, Southwestern Athletic Conference. But if you want this, please understand that we need your support, and you can support us by continuing to follow us. You can support us financially, finding a way to contact Roy Evans, me directly, Cash App. We greatly appreciate their support. We will continue to find ways to give you this information, but that support is necessary for us to grow and do the dynamic things that you see us doing today. And as you see, if you're a supporter of the Southwestern Athletic Conference, things are changing, and they're changing fast. And the only way they're going to change supporting them by out there talking positive about your institutions in such a way that we enrolling students for this upcoming fall and years to come. Thank you for the time, and thank you for this partnership.
All right. Again, shout out to our producer, Roy Evans, for helping to put all this together and bring all these folks into this space. Make sure if you're, again, like, comment, share, subscribe, do all those things that you need to do to make sure you stay abreast of all the things that are happening with Dr. Cavil's inside the HBCU Sports Lab, as well as the BCSN SportsWrap and the Black College Sports Network. All right, here for Kofi Hemingway, Mike Washington, Charles Bishop, Dr. Kenyatta Cavil, and AD Drew, I am Brian Fulford. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for watching our show, and congratulations to Florida A&M, and congratulations to the Southwestern Athletic Conference. Good night, everybody.
It was a monumental game for A&M and Tampa. It was a monumental game. Somebody had to lose, and thank God